Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on yet another present day production live stream. It's Sunday already. If you've never seen us before and you have no idea who we are, my name is James and I am the resident tech wizard.
And my name's Mark, and I've no idea which camera I'm looking at, that one there, and I've got a very fluffy cat next to me.
He's very fluffy.
He is fluffy.
And my name's Sam, and I was led here under false pretences. I thought we were discussing the seminal Tom Hanks film Big, but it turns out we're not.
I told you about the Tom Hanks thing. We can talk about the Green Mile.
I thought it was just called Green Mile. I don't know where you got the from.
We can talk about that. We can talk about... Actually, that's probably about it. We're definitely not talking about that shit when he did it in an airport.
What about Forrest Gump?
That's all right.
You seem like you might like a bit of Forrest Gump.
I guess.
Anyway.
Moving on.
And we are here this evening to discuss speakers with the speaker genius.
Who hasn't turned up, unfortunately.
No.
But in his place, we have a giant rabbit. Oh no! It is Jez.
How
relief.
coming, so
It is.
I'd make use of your props department.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jez Kerr of Kerr
How's it going?
Acoustic.
Round of applause for Jez.
Whee. Thank you, guys. Cool.
Here we
nice
are.
to have
Here with you.
Nice to have
Thank
you back. It was,
Yeah.
what, April last year?
Yeah, I can't believe it was that long ago.
I know.
A lot's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for you guys. You
Yeah.
just like speed run building a speaker company in like the interim period.
Yeah,
like,
what should we do now?
Just
let's
like
make some
pops up
speakers.
out of the blue. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, a lot of that was your fault.
Well, you know.
Heavily inspired by.
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
do great stuff.
So yeah, it'd be good to talk all things speakery.
would indeed.
Excuse me, I'm dying of thirst already.
So while you're dying, we'll just quickly introduce what's going to happen. So obviously, Jez is here to talk about speakery things. If you have any questions about speaker design or... like we did last time, we asked what colour pants you are. If you have any colour...
Black today, I'm afraid.
Yeah, how disappointing.
No.
If you have any questions about, speaker design or anything kind of audio related, we'll all do our best to answer. And anything speaker related, we will point towards Jez this evening.
Hey.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I might point back towards you. You never know.
Oh,
You guys are-
cheeky. Yes, so say hello in the chat and let us know how it's going.
What colour pants are you wearing?
How can you read my mind? I'm literally sitting there going, what, pants?
Pants?
Do you want to know what colour?
Yeah.
You're actually going to hate the answer to this.
Let me guess.
Do you want to guess
Let me
what
guess.
colour my pants
You got
are
SpongeBob
tonight?
ones on.
They're brown.
Oh.
Were they brown when you bought them, though, Chris?
Yeah, that's the thing.
They're the most comfortable boxers I own.
Yeah.
So I always like to wear comfortable boxers when I'm sitting next to you.
Have you got a pair of live stream boxes then?
Well, technically, Sam shouldn't even be wearing pants because he's CGI.
Because mine are brown too, but they're just brown at the back and yellow at the front.
Nice.
Oh, Jesus. No, I bought these this colour. It just happened to be that colour. You're disgusting.
Okay.
And you're going to end up in a very dark place one day.
That's called the YouTube ban bin.
I'm here already.
So, right, how do we get
hang
started?
on, sorry, pants. Where did the pants thing come
Okay,
from?
so
just
so when we
quickly.
did the
This is
last
James's
live
fault.
stream,
Yeah.
when we did the last live stream with Jez, we advertised it as being something all about like, oh, what colour pants will Jez be wearing? And then it kind of the joke followed along, and then at the end of the live stream, he did indeed show
I
us
actually
his
brought
pants.
some pants. Yeah, not the ones I was wearing. I hasten to add. I had some prop pants, and
You
yeah.
brought prop
I
pants.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you
Wow.
announced that there'd be some sort of pants discussion, and then before we knew what was happening, like all the questions were like, what? Go on, then. What's the deal with the pants?
Well,
Yeah,
I
well,
guess what that
bring some-
means is that if the discussion is pants, you can say, well, we said it.
Yeah, should it be pants?
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Disclaimer.
covering
Yeah.
all your bases.
Oh, it's true.
Good to do.
So, just as a quick starter, can you just tell us who
Yeah.
you are, what you do? Tell
Sure.
us a bit about Jez.
Yeah, sure. I'm Jez. So I founded Kerr Acoustic loudspeakers about 6.5 years ago now. So It's
Wow.
been a little while. So yeah, I make high-end transmission line speakers, as modelled right here.
Here's one I made earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, primarily kind of originally designed for the studio market, but they've sort of found favour in the high-end domestic market. So that's kind of where most of our customers are now. So it's transmission line base loading, true ribbon tweeters, and designed around principles of neutrality and just good old-fashioned, honest engineering. So yeah,
Lovely.
so that's what I do.
And I have to say, because this very pair we had in here for
They were in residence for a while.
Months.
weren't
Yeah,
they?
about 3 months or
no,
so,
it
yeah.
was more than
Was
that.
it
It
longer
was.
than that?
Yeah, I think it was heading. Yeah, it was about a good 9 months or so.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
They didn't want to leave. They cried all the way home.
They did,
They were
yeah.
quite happy here.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten quite how spectacular they sound. I mean, we only fired them up for what, half
Just
an
a
hour or
quick
so.
blast, yeah.
Quick
Yeah.
blast earlier,
While we
and
were
I was
munching
like,
our
oh yeah,
Dominoes.
no,
Yeah.
these are really good.
Aw, cheers.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, they're in good company, so yeah.
yeah, it's good to have them back.
Cool, thank you.
So, there are already questions coming in.
Ooh.
Now, this one might be potentially an anecdotal question, but
Sure.
we'll work around it. So, there's a question here from Herfenor who says, why do speaker companies put cheap drivers in expensive speakers? Does the extra R&D needed make them sound good but negate the savings? That's quite an interesting...
That is a good one.
Interesting
and
approach.
You do see this sometimes. You see designers make weird decisions sometimes, but sometimes they're actually quite beneficial decisions. So there are, you know, I think back to one of my favourite speaker designers from back in the day, Arnie Newdell of Infinity Systems, the American designer who'd put hours and hours and hours of research into, you know, cabinet materials and crossover topology, but he famously used quite cheap, inexpensive bass drivers. But
Right.
it was about how he'd implemented them
Yeah.
rather than the actual driver, you know, kind of quality itself. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, a trend we're perhaps, you know, moving away from. I don't know how much of a trend it was necessarily, but I think it's, you know, it just goes, the point is it's about what you do with the components, really.
Sure.
More than the actual, you
And
know,
if you get high quality components within a
Yeah.
well-designed box,
Yeah.
generally it'll sound good.
it'll sound good. Yeah, it's a good starting point. You know, you kind of, if you're starting off with good drivers and you're on kind of solid ground to, you know,
For sure.
implement them well in a good cabinet.
So
Yeah.
I think someone has misseen what colour these speakers are because they commented
Yeah.
saying, oh my god, yellow and brown. They're definitely not yellow and brown.
No, that's oak.
You probably might not be able to see so clearly on the camera, but yes, they are oak, and yes, obviously the black driver's there, but definitely no yellow and brown, unless they were
Interesting
looking
idea
at
for a
something
finish,
completely
though.
different.
The kind of the giraffe special, kind of,
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so
or like the mouldy.
if I
banana.
remember correctly, did you have a customer who had a bright yellow pair?
Yep, you've done yellow. Yeah, Lamborghini yellow to be specific.
I mean, they look
Yeah.
great because
They
you
were
showed me
pretty
some
snazzy.
pictures. They look lovely.
Yeah, I've done some nice colours. Like, I quite like the car paint finishes we sometimes get. Recently we did Porsche metallic slate grey, but it was very specifically 1996 Porsche metallic slate grey.
Wow.
Because that's the era that their Porsche was from. So they were like, it has to match.
It's
perfectly.
gotta be the
Not all
right
speakers in
vintage
the
paint.
car are going to be in the same situation very often. I guess
No.
that's sort of unlikely. You wouldn't really have them on your parcel shelf, would you? But
Not really on your car in your living room.
no,
But
Maybe you could have the
Do a bit of
speakers
practical.
in the garage behind the
you
car.
could.
you
You could do
that's
that.
true.
then,
Yep.
Especially if you were to soundproof your
Yeah.
garage and drive your Porsche in and then sit in your Porsche
Yeah.
and listen to your
Cool.
music.
Open the doors, bass trap.
Yeah.
Like a drive-in cinema, but like drive-in audio, just I don't know,
Yeah.
press a button, the
You just have
windscreen
to
goes down.
smash the windscreen out to
Yeah.
give it a,
Could get
proper
expensive.
experience.
Going back to that first question though about the drivers and cheap drivers, there were a couple of companies that we spoke to at Gearfest earlier in the year. I won't mention any names, but there seems to be there's kind of two. Well, there seem to be to us sort of two camps of manufacturers. There's people like you who do what we've done, and it's like, right, okay, what are the absolute best components for the job we can find?
Yeah.
And we want the highest quality of results, so we'll go for the best components and put them in the best cabinet and do all the R&D around that.
Yeah.
And then there's the, right, okay, we need to sell a speaker for $5,000 a pair. How can we get a bass driver in for under $30?
Yeah, because then it's
Seems
very
to
much
be
built
the-
into a cost, isn't it? So you
Yeah,
kind of
there's-
start with a budget rather than a design goal. Can
Yeah, it's sort of,
work
it's like-
backwards from
yeah,
that.
it's the accountants
Yeah.
are designing it rather than the
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than the passionate
Yeah,
sort of
absolutely.
audio folk.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better to take a really expensive driver and put it in a cheap box. Equally, you know,
Yeah.
I think you know that's doing yourself perhaps even more of a disservice actually, because
As we found.
yeah, if you've got a resonant box, that's not so good.
Yes.
Like, you know, if you tap it and it sounds like a box of eggs, you know,
Yeah, it's just a
there's no
wasted
point in
driver.
putting a
And
nice
if egg
driver in
yolk
there.
comes out, that's even worse.
Oh, that would be
Yeah.
horrible.
Again, like having a high-end pair of speakers in a
Yeah,
badly treated room is
exactly.
the same kind of
Yeah.
same kind of thing. You're probably better off spending a bit less on the speakers and a bit more on the
Yeah,
acoustic
it's a good
treatment
parallel
and
story
sort of
actually.
balance
Yeah,
it out.
makes sense. Yeah.
So I realised as we planned this live stream so well, we were going to start with some news, weren't we? And then
were
we
we?
completely forgot and started talking about speakers.
Well, that's because the main news was
The main news was Jez. Jez
Strapped
is
in
news.
with my mask.
But
Yes.
yeah, so we have
He's
some
the
things to talk
headline.
about, which we will now talk about at the end of the live stream because we are so well organised.
Or we could drop it in
Or
casually.
we could drop
can
it
drop
in.
things in.
How
Slide it
dynamic.
in there.
Yeah.
How dynamic. So yes, at some point randomly you might get some news in this live stream because we're so
News
well
may
organised.
occur.
We're a bit like Twitter.
Yes.
Shitter.
That's shit to Twitter.
Shitter Twitter.
It's
like
called
it.
X now, isn't it?
Is it?
X.
Stupid
What
name.
Twitter is?
Yeah.
It's called X.
Yeah, but it's called X, formerly known as Twitter, isn't it? You never see it
Like
written as
Prince.
just
and if you go twitter.com,
yeah.
you
Oh, you still get that? It still
yeah.
redirects. I wonder how long that'll be the case
Why
for.
have they called it
Probably
X?
indefinitely.
I don't know,
Okay,
but there's
excellent.
another one
On
called
it.
Threads.
That's just stupid. It's all stupid. What a waste of time. It's much better to make music.
I'm wondering if it's just been massively misinterpreted and it's actually 10, and they've just like it's the Roman numeral. It's like when the iPhone X came out and everyone was like, "Oh, it's the 10. It's the Roman numeral for 10."
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know. Maybe it's been lost.
So
Yeah, could be. I like it.
back to Speaker World just quickly. So we've got some questions coming in about
Nice.
our
I've just
speaker.
tend you something.
Thanks.
Lovely. We've got some questions coming in about
put it on
our
the
speaker.
thread.
God, it's impossible just to
Not the thread your pants are made out of.
finish.
Yes.
Finished.
We might interrupt you again. It depends how we
Okay,
feel.
great. So
Did you see that thing? Sorry.
You've seen that film Big?
Oh, what, the one with Tom Hanks in it? Yes, I have.
Tom Shanks.
Tom Shanks, that's the one. Sorry, Joe.
thank you.
Lamb Shanks.
Do you know he's been on holiday this week?
Oh yeah, that's your news, isn't it? I think haven't we got a
Okay.
clip of your holiday?
So I mean,
Come on, let's drop a news bit in.
Yeah.
good
Just drop a news
segue.
bit in.
Good segue into the news then. So I was in Norway last week, or as of yesterday. I was in Norway and I was doing the Norwegian thing where you go and feed reindeers, and then
Is that a
obviously,
Norwegian thing?
I don't know. It might be.
And has it
We
got
don't
an-
have them here.
Has it
so
got
it's-
an S on the end?
I don't know. Anyway, there were reindeer, and it wasn't rainy, but there were deer. And basically, one of them attacked me. So
Bad.
this naughty boy decided to knock me straight on the floor.
Ow.
Jesus.
Yeah, fine.
So tell us what you did then, which was a little excessive, I think.
So, in a perfectly suitable bout of revenge, I went into the nearby hut and ate its brother in a reindeer stew. So, there is now one less reindeer in the world. It wasn't the one that headbutted me, but it was one of them. Actually tasted like beef. Just a bit kind of more northern.
No. I think you might have
Yeah.
some beef with some Northerners after that comment.
You may well do.
Yes, so back to the actual speaker thing, and then we'll come to some more news later. There's no more reindeer news, unfortunately.
Oh,
I mean,
sad.
that was the
So
only
I just
interest
can't
in
get
it.
over the fact that you ate his brother.
I know.
It's a proportionate response.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
So
He won't be doing it again.
there is no Rudolph this year, I'm afraid, because he's in my belly. So, right, question. Back to some speakery things. Are there? I don't know what the hand thing was. Are there any modern, properly high-quality, full-range drivers out there today? So this is something that has been asked to us quite a lot. Have we considered using this brand or
range.
that brand, full
Yeah,
range, in
yeah,
a
yeah.
speaker? In your opinion, do you think that there is any kind of value to that kind of driver?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So yeah, there are actually some really quite interesting full range drivers out there. The first place my mind goes to is Lowther, so old school. Do you remember the Lowther cones with the sort of little kind of whizzer cone or parasitic cone as they call it, which kind of act as a secondary cone really, just to help reproduce those high frequencies. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how full range you define full range as, I think, is the thing. You know, if it's 20 hertz to 20k, not really. Like, not without a little bit of jiggery pokery upstream, be it in the form of, you know, DSP or some sort of passive filtering or something. But yeah, I mean, I think Fostex have done some really interesting full range drivers. There's another company, is it? I want to say AER. That springs to mind. Yeah, I mean, and we're talking full range as in not like a dual concentric driver like the old Tannoy style. You mean like just a single voice coil,
Yes.
single driver? Yeah, they are out there. And of course, the benefits of that, you know, you don't have to do any filtering. There's no crossover whatsoever.
Yep.
So you're not losing anything. It's, you know, getting totally full range signal. But yeah, they are out there. You just got to search for them a little bit more.
So do you think that something like intermodulation distortion could be more prevalent in a driver like that? Okay, you can probably do something in DSP to combat that.
Who?
So Intermodulation distortion.
Intermodulation distortion. Is that something from Star Trek, or
It is.
am I on the wrong?
You're on the
Live
wrong,
stream.
you're on the wrong
Oh,
live
not
stream again.
again.
I told
So,
you should be on the other one.
Do you want to explain it, or shall I?
Yeah. So when you've got a cone that's obviously reproducing at full range bandwidth, you may enter into issues. So you've got like a high, I don't know, say like a 5K tone coming from the same driver that's producing like the 50 hertz, bass signal. You could run into issues where the cone is obviously having to reproduce, move very quickly to reproduce a really high frequency, but it's being modulated by the physical movement of the lower frequencies coming through it at the same time, and that I guess can run into what we're referring to as intermodulation distortion. Is that as you understand it as well? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically it impacts the ability of a driver to create other frequencies because
Yeah.
it's essentially busy doing another frequency
Exactly.
at that point in time.
You're still lost, aren't
Yeah,
you?
it's always a trade-off. Like, yeah.
No,
So
go on. You speak
Right,
first.
so imagine, so the higher a frequency is, the faster the cone has to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cone's doing that for a mid-range frequency, and the cone's also doing that
Yeah.
for the low frequency. So what's actually happening is that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a very
Come
good
on,
hand
go away.
actually.
Quite
Makes
often
the
you can
point.
hear it as gain pumping. You can hear the
Yes.
mid-range
Yeah.
pumping with the,
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
low kind
Particularly
of.
as you're cranking it up as well, you can
Yeah.
start to run into and it's actually, so we've referred to this thing called power compression, which we'll get onto later, because that's something that can happen in bass drivers, particularly when voice coils get quite hot. If you're really caning a full range driver, you can start to hear the effects of that power compressioning happening further up the spectrum as
Right.
well.
Right.
Which it's almost a bit like a ducking compressor kind
Yeah,
of effect.
yeah.
You kind of just feel like every time there's a kick, everything else is sort of dipping
sort
out
of
ever
dips
so
down a
slightly.
bit,
It's
yeah.
obviously the electrical characteristics are changing as the coil's getting hotter.
Interesting.
So that's the thing, yeah. But it's a trade-off. Like, there are definitely benefits and advantages to single full range driver.
Yeah. So one benefit would
drawbacks.
be like a single point
It's a true
source,
point
because
source.
you've got one driver, it's only coming from one
Exactly,
point in space, so you get a really kind of precise positioning of your audio. But obviously there are downsides as well. So
Yeah.
doing it in the way that you've done on your speakers in the background there with three
Yeah.
drivers would eliminate some of those downsides,
Exactly, yeah.
such
I
as
kinda feel
the
like
distortion, intermodulation.
Three's a bit of a magic number, really. I think that's kind of, in many respects, the ideal kind of number of drivers to kind of effectively split the different roles.
So
without
seeing
trying
as
to
we've
change
got
things.
a speaker there right behind you, just
Yeah.
explain to us, first of all, what the drivers are, like how they work, just
Sure.
for people that are watching that don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, just go from there.
All right, so starting at the bottom, that is the 12-inch Volt radial, specifically the RV3143. And for those who don't know the Volt driver, I mean, you'd probably have to be living under a rock not to recognise it if you're into speakers. But yeah, so it's a very special driver. It has this radial intercooler chassis on the front, which is a cast steel frame essentially, and it replaces the basket that you would normally have at the rear of the speaker, responsible for connecting the magnet to the mounting assembly and the front frame and all that stuff. And the benefit there, which we can get into more later if you like, is that it draws heat out from the voice coil and radiates it into the room, rather than having it build up in the back of the cabinet. So much quicker cooling to the voice coil, reducing power compression.
Amazing. And that's a design that many people might not have seen, because that's unique to the Volt drivers, right?
Yeah, only Volt, as far as I know, use this method of mounting and cooling.
Because if you look on the back of most drivers, you see that kind of arrangement, but on many speakers you wouldn't normally open them up to see
Yeah.
the rear of a driver.
Yeah, that's it.
So they all do feature that kind of shape, but
Yeah, it's really weird. Like the first time I got my hands on a pair, because I'd
Yeah.
drooled over them for years and years before actually trying some out, and it's weird if you look at the back of it. You think,
Yeah,
hey,
it's weird just see the cone. And it's
it's
like,
this massive magnet just like floating in midair.
yeah, what's holding
It's
this
like,
together?
how's this all? Yeah. How's
Can
this
you
holding
show?
itself
You've
together?
actually got a 10-inch one, haven't you? That you can
I
show
do.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's have a
So-
let's have a look.
Very special driver. So this is a 10-inch Volt radial.
wowzers.
This is a very new product that Volt only released a few months ago, technically. We've had some early kind of pre-production models that we've been doing some experimenting with. So yeah, it's a baby version. So they do the 12, they've done the 15 and the 18 for a long time. But yeah, the new 10, which has been a long time in the development. Very cool driver, this.
Can you show the rear of it to the
I can.
camera?
So yeah, so there's the floating magnet. Ta-da! No basket. Oh,
Yeah, it looks like it's magically floating on a piece of
there we
paper.
go. Yeah. Held up by the force. And nothing else.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. You've also got, so there's also a cooling chassis here as well. So there's three ways that this vents. So obviously you've got the front cast steel chassis, then you've got cooling here, So you can actually see the voice coil former through these little gaps here. So there's really direct cooling to the voice coil there. You've also got vent holes in the back with a magnet too. So this thing ain't getting hot. It keeps itself really super cool, which results in really linear performance and insane power handling.
That is one chilly boy.
Now, the first time I encountered one of those, I did what you did just now, and I flicked the front.
Yeah.
And it went ding, 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 and I thought, well, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? You're going to hear ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
But you don't
Well,
at all.
no, not at the frequencies it's reproducing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. It's typically used in applications where it's only going to be producing 500 hertz and below.
And in the cabinet, it kind of deadens
exactly.
it. It's more of a donk.
There's no ringing that happens from that. But,
Yeah.
So we've got some amazing questions coming in. So let's quickly just cover what the other two
let's dive
drivers
back
are in that, and then we'll
there's
cover
so
the
much to talk
questions.
about with the 12-inch Volt. It's just like, so moving up, so the 3-inch dome, also from Volt, and this is the VM752. So this is the kind of the full fat version with the 8 kilo magnet, the big boy.
Jeez, that's heavy.
So 75mm voice coil, doped cloth dome. Obviously, originally the famous 3-inch dome was sort of ATC back in the 70s. I think Billy Woodman kind of pioneered that sort of design, and then Volt started producing them later on. It's a very similar design principle, but again, it's deceptive because you see this front. What you don't see is the massive magnet on the back, which is just huge. This actually weighs more than the woofer does.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is like 9.5 kilos in total. It's weighty.
Yeah.
Big old thing. And then the ribbon, of course, it's a true ribbon. It's an AMT style ribbon. And
so what's the difference there? Because we used to companies like Adam Audio using AMT, which they kind of throw ribbon into their
this word
head
ribbon
as well.
Gets banded around a bit, which is fair enough, really. I think ribbon has become synonymous with just a planar tweeter, basically. Right. So meaning like a flat tweeter. But a true ribbon has no excess moving mass whatsoever. So the thin sliver of aluminium foil that you see here, that is both the conductor and the diaphragm. So there's no film, there's no kind of mylar kind of material that's bonded onto. That is just a straight piece of flat foil. So the AMT style ribbons that you see have like a mylar film, and then they have a conductor sort of bonded onto it, like a kind of which when you measure it is it measures having a similar kind of impedance or resistance to a moving coil driver, so you can plumb those straight in. With the true ribbon, you actually have to have an impedance converting transformer, because otherwise that conductor would just measure a dead short. It would just be like 0 ohms, because there's no resistance there, because there's no kind of filament element, whereas in an AMC there is. So that's the main difference there.
So there are some questions based on what we've just spoke about. So the first one from Cheapo Card Company is, are they ribboned for extra pleasure?
Ooh, they certainly can be. You'll have to buy a pair and try them out and report back.
So these are ribbon tweeters as opposed to AMT. And so ribbons are quite rare in most speakers, aren't they? They're normally AMTs or... So in heads, for example, or in Adams. Are they more expensive to go with ribbons? Is that one reason why?
Yeah, they are typically a bit more expensive. I mean, partially because they've got a transformer on the back of them, which has to be made to quite a high standard within quite specific tolerances. So yeah, there's, again, kind of like the mid-driver, there's a lot going on behind what you see on the front. Yeah, they're a little bit more costly to implement. They're a bit more fiddly to build, because obviously you've got that very, very, very thin foil, and the moment you crinkle that or dent it or whatever, then it's like start again. Yeah.
Do the AMTs actually create the sound in a different way as well? Is it more of a concertina thing that they're doing rather than a
a lot of the AMTs have
out?
exactly that, kind of like a concertina kind of fold to them. So if you were to look at it side on, it would kind of resemble a kind of accordion sort of shape. Really. So they're kind of doing this, and it's that kind of up and down motion that's kind of compressing those little concertina curves and like firing the sound out at you. Whereas that's just flat foil. So there's it's literally just a planar back and forwards motion. They are still quite a bit lighter than an AMT. So an AMT typically lighter than a dome, and a true ribbon lighter than an AMT, basically. So very low moving mass.
So seeing as we're now talking about speakers with 3 drivers as opposed to a single driver speaker, and the benefits of having 3, you can split each kind of band into its own area and remove the distortions and that kind of problem. Is there a benefit to having a speaker with 4 drivers?
In some cases, yeah, absolutely.
So would that just create better separation between the bands?
I think it depends on the use case. I mean, yes, ultimately, particularly like in like live systems, like big active live systems where you have, you know, where you really need a lot of power, and so you need each driver to be operating extremely efficiently within its given passband. So you might have kind of like a sub-bass driver that's operating from 20 hertz or even lower, you know, up to about sort of 80 or 100. That'll hand over to like a mid-bass driver. And then from then on, you get your mid and your tweeter. So so four way's a thing, and it's tricky as in. Sorry, Sam.
No, that's all right. Yeah. It's just carry on if you've got a thought you want to get out. But so talking about headphones, right? In-ear monitoring. Okay.
Yeah.
So recently, I was shown some in-ear monitors with 12 drivers. So that's made me think, well, 3 drivers, 4 drivers. How many drivers could you feasibly have in a speaker? And how would you explain that to someone like me when we're talking about, say for example, if you're looking at an EQ on, you know, your favourite DAW or whatever it might be. So you're saying that's 500.
Or thereabouts. In this case, it's about 380, but yeah.
So where are we looking at for a...
Yeah, so this is handing over about sort of 380, 370, 380 over to here. And they were about 3.8k up to here.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So if you had 4 drivers, what area would that you be?
Well, I mean, so with this particular cabinet, I mean, it's been designed obviously from the ground up as a 3-way to kind of, you know, that's how it's always been kind of conceived. But I mean, normally the place you would see an extra driver coming in would be in here. So you'd have like a sub bass and then like a kind of mid bass or kind of like upper bass driver. So you've got the kind of, I guess, the sort of punch and then the kind of more rumbly kind of low sound from like a sub. So that's sometimes where you see, dedicated subs that are handling just that lowest octave, really, because it's quite a specialist driver. If you want to produce really high SPL, low frequency sound, a dedicated driver can be quite useful. That's why when you see subwoofers, they often look very purpose built, and you have this massive roll surround, you know, and maybe like a big, you know, kind of much thicker, kind of weightier cone, you know, where cone mass doesn't become so much of an issue because it's about output, you know, kind of.
But hypothetically, how far could you take it with?
I mean, I've seen speakers with like 10 drivers. It's doable, but obviously you start to introduce other issues with the more drivers you add, like phase issues, and you need to align all of those speakers.
It becomes a bit complicated.
And you have to rename your company Bose as well.
Yes. So, I mean, theoretically, you could have like 10 speakers, you could have 15 speakers maybe, but once you go past 3 or maybe 4 drivers, you start to introduce more issues than the benefits would bring. I think
it can become a bit more complicated,
much more complicated, as you said, to produce and kind of work out what you're sending to which driver.
And particularly if it's a passive design as well, because then you've got so much more extra work going on in the crossover. I think, you know, you start running into, you know, the component cost could get close to the cost of the drivers alone just in the crossover. If you've got that many pass bands and they all need to be very, very carefully filtered out, you know, then that's going to get quite expensive. More doable with active though, of course.
Well, that's actually a comment that's just come in. Like, what are our thoughts on passive versus active crossovers? So, for people like Sam that aren't speaker designers, what is the difference between a passive and active? What are they?
Well, passive is when you have literally a passive network of electronic components. So that will typically be inductors, capacitors, and resistors. So LCR circuits, basically. And you arrange them in a however you choose to kind of divide up the input signal into different pass bands. So this is a passive speaker. So it's a second order filter on this. So there's an inductor in line with the woofer, and then a shunt capacitor to provide the second order element. So it's literally just using physical electronic components in the passive realm post amplification versus doing the filtering actively or in some cases digitally ahead of the amplification process. So less to get in the way between the driver and the amplifier in an active system. But then of course you need an amp channel for every driver. So it's so there are trade-offs, there are benefits and advantages to both. I think
well, what's the benefit to someone like me who's mixing and producing music?
I mean, it's no secret in the kind of mixing, producing world, active is very much the norm. You know, that's far more commonplace, and for good reason. You know, active has gotten better and better and better, and also, I think they offer a great degree of control as well. So if you're, for example, using some calibration software, or if the speaker has its own calibration software that you can use to adjust the filters ever so slightly to really dial them in for your room, then that can be quite useful. That's much more difficult to achieve in the passive domain kind of thing. You can't really be like hopping behind your speakers and pulling out resistors and swapping.
Unless you're Jez, in which case you do this all the time. Just throwing capacitors all over the place.
Well,
you've
developed one of the most transparent passive crossovers
Thank you.
I've ever heard. I remember coming up to your house and hearing those for the first time.
Yeah.
And if you told me they were 100% active, I'd have gone, yeah, oh, great. Well, what amps are you using? They sound fantastic. I mean, it is completely like there's nothing there.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like a design language in a way, really. It's just a different means of approaching the task with the same end goal, which is just dividing the input signal into different pass bands for your speakers. I've just always worked with passive, and that's just come from, as a kid, growing up, taking speakers apart, playing with different electronic components, finding out what they do, swapping them around. So it's always just been quite a natural kind of comfortable kind of area to work in. So it's always worked for me. But that's not to say that I wouldn't consider doing some active crossover tweakery, because I think that could be very interesting.
And it's also worth saying that with passive speakers such as your K100s here, that gives the option for people to choose their own amps as well. So if you don't particularly like the sound of like a Bryston amp or this or that, you can then choose that, because that comes prior to the crossover basically. So you choose what gets fed into the speaker from there.
Kind of tweaking that end.
Whereas the opposite, so in our speakers, for example, is they're active, so the crossover comes first and then the amp comes second, or just before the drivers.
How do you deal with, because I'm the other way, I've only ever dealt with I've never built a passive crossover in my life. I've only either gone active or latterly DSP. How do you deal with things like the damping factor of the amplifier? Pretty much when it's directly connected to a loudspeaker, it can effectively help stop the cone. How do you deal with things like that with a passive crossover?
That's a good point. Well, I mean, so if you kind of think of a loudspeaker and you think of the passive crossover, this is something that often gets overlooked. The drivers essentially are just another electronic component that's part of that circuit, basically. And so there's a number of different components going on there, including the drivers themselves. So so all of those little factors will have have an effect on what eventually comes out of the cone and what you hear. But yeah, I mean, with passive filters, there isn't really a kind of a sort of delay or like a kind of lag induced by it. If you've got a good stable amplifier with plenty of current control, current drive, then that's going to control the cone through a passive filter effectively. The same as it would with an active speaker. Or at least that's been my experience. But, but it is a less direct connection in a sense. But I mean, if you think about the speed of electrons in a wire, it's pretty nippy. So it's not like holding things up. It's not like kind of. So
can I ask another?
Go for it.
Perfectly layman question. What's going to be a discernible hallmark of the listening experience with this speaker as opposed to maybe what you guys have designed? Right. What am I going to hear as either a consumer or someone who's just listening? And be like, that's a passive one, that's an active one. I don't think there's a simple answer to that, to be quite honest. I think it's got more to do with what the designer had in mind and what his ears are telling him when he's designing it. Whereas I think if I were to dive into the scary world of DSP crossovers and kind of active crossovers, I think the end result speaker wouldn't necessarily sound. Well, I don't know. I'm ready to be proven wrong, but I think if it was my ears on the job, it would still come out sounding fairly similar. So I think it's this. It's a means to an end. The filtering process. It's a tool, isn't it? Exactly, it's a tool. Yeah, it's just like it's the different kind of way of doing it. So it's purely down to the person. Yeah. But having said that, though, you guys are obviously working in the active crossover world. You've experienced both. What would you say? Yeah,
but the design process for that was me tweaking a DBX 3-way crossover built for live sound, feeding 3 amps. Yeah. And that sounds great. And then going to you with your software and your DSP and going make it sound like that. Yeah. That was the first kind of. Yeah. That was the first kind of process. How was that process for you, James? How did you find that?
Well, it's changed a lot for me doing the DSP stuff recently. So when we first started, obviously I didn't know anything about it. So it's been a massive learning curve, and it did start off like that with us doing it on analog crossovers because we knew how they worked. There's just simple knobs. Yeah. And then learning how to transfer that in. Now it's done entirely in the digital world because we know how that works. It has got both more and less complicated over time, because it's got more complicated as I've learned how to do more stuff
Yeah.
to make a better sound, like more phase alignment stuff, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's easier because we've done it so many times at this point with all the iterations. I know what I'm listening for,
Yeah.
and I know what I'm testing for. So
Yeah. Exactly.
you say it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Some things go harder, some things go, easier.
Yeah.
It could be either. So when it comes, I mean, we've designed the speakers based on certain things that we liked about the drivers, and we've kind of pushed the crossovers to work around that. When it comes to passive stuff, because obviously with the active DSP stuff, I can set a high pass and a low pass, and that's
Yeah.
it. That's what the drivers are doing.
Yeah.
I know nothing about circuitry or
Sure.
crossover kind of stuff, so this would be a good answer for me as well. How does it come to, as a user said on here, basically choosing where to bring your drivers in? So say for example you pick 380 or something for the bass
Yeah.
drivers high end. Where do you pick that? Like, what makes you pick that, and how do you get there, basically?
Yeah. Well, a good starting point is to look at the frequency response curve of the driver, and particularly if it's like a woofer, just try running it full range just to see where it's behaving
Yeah.
well. Start listening for where those kind of, maybe not so nice little spikes come in. Like a bass driver will, typically have a fairly flat response until you get to like the resonant frequency of the voice coil former, and then you'll get like a big old spike, and you want to kind of filter off long ahead of that kind of thing. But you can get a reasonable idea by just looking at the manufacturer's provided response plot curves for a given driver, and kind of think, okay, that's a good starting point. So you use that as your starting point, and then season to taste, really.
Good. So it's good to know that it's not so different from what we do. It's just a
Yeah.
different way of operating the
It is
tools,
exactly.
essentially.
It's just a different way of working. Yeah. And you get that again through use. I mean, it's a well-trodden path. People have been making passive crossovers for long old time. I was going to say 50 years, but it's
God,
70
it
years.
must be such a different experience actually designing your own speakers and then listening to music on those
Yeah.
Oh, it's
speakers
weird.
and being
Yeah.
like
It's
you-
nice when you get it right, but up until that point, it's an awful experience.
Well,
Yeah.
Like, this is the one, play.
I'm just
God.
imagining, like,
Yeah.
if you, I remember the first time I heard a pair of ATCs, and obviously thousands of people millions of people probably listened to music on those speakers. So you just go in there and you assume, oh yeah, it's going to sound good. But it must be a whole nother level actually designing your own speaker and then listening to your favourite music on it.
Yeah.
Is there a moment where you
weird.
go, I've got it?
I think, there are those little moments. If there's a particular track and you're listening for something to sound a particular way, like, I'm sure it's the same for you guys, particularly if you're working on something very specific, if there's something you're not quite happy with, and so you're really kind of zoomed in to a very specific area of the spectrum, and you're like, no, that's not quite right. And then
Do you have an
just try
idea in your
something.
mind about how you want it to sound?
Yeah. This kind of vision of that's how it should be. That's how my brain says this should sound.
And is that almost based on like having heard, your favourite music on different speaker systems, and then you're kind of doing an amalgamation in your own brain
I
about
guess so.
where you want it to be?
And also just spending a lot of time around instruments, going to gigs, hearing sound sources like occurring naturally, and kind of knowing when you're hearing something that's an artifact rather than kind of an accurate reproduction of the original source. So, yeah.
I remember my first experience of that was Karen Carpenter's Spit.
Yeah, you can hear the moisture in their mouth
Yeah.
on really good speakers, and you can't on not really good speakers. It's,
I remember you going, come and listen to this Carpenter's song.
yeah,
It's like,
and you can
really?
hear
I
them.
wasn't
You can hear
expecting
them.
this.
And that's why you have, and I know you're the same with your playlist as well. You pick different tracks to listen specifically to different things.
Yeah.
So I've still got Close to You on my speaker test playlist because I'm listening for that.
Yeah.
And the greater sense I
Just get a bit closer and do that again. Oh yeah, that's good.
For the mark. ASMR.
yeah, the
Only
greater
fans.
sense I get of that, the more. I mean, I wish she'd mic'd up the other lips, but obviously she didn't. The greater sense I get of that, and the greater sort of depth, then oh shut up. Any more questions?
Yes. That completely just blew it out of my mind. So Brian DeMaio said passive crossovers require more expensive manufacturing tolerances on the parts.
Yeah.
So is that because they're pushing more current through, essentially, because you're working with a pre-amplified signal, essentially,
you
rather
need,
than a line
you need
level?
much chunkier components because they're having fairly high current signals pushed through them, especially on like a big beefy speaker like this. You need big chunky inductors that aren't gonna sap up all the power.
So when it comes to designing the sound of our speakers, for example, if there was a particular, and obviously we try and work around it in the kind of design phase rather than fixing it in post in the DSP, but if there's, for example, like a bit of a hump or a notch or something that shouldn't be there, you can do that in the digital realm because it's essentially like an EQ.
Yeah.
Don't hate me in the comments for saying that, but it basically is. But in passive world, can you do that? Can you do notching, and can you kind of bring up bits and bobs?
Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah. So you can put in little kind of notch filters, as they're called, which again, just little kind of LCR circuit arrangements, tuned to quite a tight frequency if there's something you want to, push up or pull down. The trouble is, it's a bit of a moving target, because once you start doing that, you can find it can have an effect somewhere else. So it can be a bit of a kind of dark art kind
So
of.
would a good analogy be you're more in the analog realm and you're more in the digital
in a
realm?
sense.
Pretty much.
Yeah, maybe.
If we're
maybe.
talking sort of audio world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that very
Interesting.
much is the case. I mean, your capacitors and resistors and bits and bobs, and I'm ones and zeros and keyboards, which is what we're good at. Because if we tried to do it the other way around, I wouldn't even know where
That's
to
it.
start.
It's just kind of what you're
to be
comfortable with,
honest,
isn't it? And what you've got experience in
Exactly.
doing. Yeah.
Because there's one thing that I would identify from having listened and mixed on both of these, on your wonderful speakers and also yours, is the lack of fatigue on my ears. Is so I at my home studio I've just got a bog standard pair of Yamaha HS8. Don't hate me in the comments. and they do the job,
Yeah,
But
and
when
you know them.
And I know them.
Yeah.
But when I turn them up,
Yeah.
I
it
don't want them
hurts.
up for long, and I'm a bit of a weird sort of music guy, whatever, because I don't actually like loud music.
Sure.
But what I have found is when I
Yeah.
was listening on these before, and also with your speakers, was that I would just keep turning them up.
Yeah.
And I was
It's
fine.
easy to do. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was enjoying
Yeah.
it. No ringing, nothing.
Yeah.
Which obviously there's a whole other science behind the ringing in the ears that is more than just that's too loud,
Just
that's
volume.
too quiet.
Yeah.
But that. Why is that? Why can I listen to music that loudly and enjoy it?
Well, my theory on that is, I don't know, other people share this view, is that it's all about distortion. So when you have a very clean speaker that's got very low distortion characteristics, like you say, you can just keep turning it up and up and up, and it just sounds loudy. It doesn't start, compressing in your ear and kind of, sounding a bit kind of like you've got your head in a wasp's nest. You kind of get this kind of almost effortless sense of, oh, this is clean. You can just keep going with it. But yeah, with cheaper speakers, you can get those distortion characteristics coming in, and that's what our ears really don't like. And the same goes for drivers as well. If you feed, that's why it's always better to have an amplifier that's more powerful than you need, because the moment your amp starts going into clipping and essentially sending square waves to your drivers, that's what blows drivers.
Yeah.
It's far
Rather
better to
than
send a
level.
driver
Yeah.
too much clean signal than a kind of underpowered signal from an amp that's going into clipping mode. And I think it's kind of the same for our ears as well. If there's the distortion happening in there, nasty harmonics, that's what our ears respond really
So a
negatively to.
smooth, true response, and I'm going to enjoy turning it up. Whereas
Yeah, exactly.
if it's not smooth,
Yeah, and there was there was that study done in the early 2000s as well about to find out why so many construction workers have irreversible hearing damage and so many sound engineers and musicians don't, although clearly should have, because they've been exposed to at least twice the volume for 4 times as long. And they actually proved that there's I don't know the science about this in depth, the little receptor things in your ears, it's basically they can be dampened by dopamine. So if you're enjoying what you're listening to, that's effectively your ears are going, I can't take any more of this. Your brain is going, give me more of this. So there's an exchange there, and your brain actually dampens the little hearing receptors, and you can crank it up and really enjoy it and want more and more and more and not suffer hearing damage. Now, it doesn't work with everyone. Some people, I know a lot of live sound engineers that have hearing damage, but I know an awful lot more that don't. That really should have, myself included.
Yeah.
I should be deaf as a post. I shouldn't be able to hear anything above about 6K at this point, with the amount of ridiculously loud music I've listened to, either on a stage or in an audience or in a studio. But I can still hear up to 15, 16K at 51, which is insane. Whereas if I'd been working on a construction site and was listening to a pneumatic drill, for a quarter of the time, for 10 years, I'd probably be absolutely deaf as a post.
But that begs the question, what is your version of a musical pneumatic drill?
Ooh.
What would actually send you off
Probably some
listening
Venetian snares or something like that. Naturally, love Venetian snares.
Because there must be some sound engineers who were doing gigs that they didn't want to do.
Yeah, if you don't like the band,
and if you don't like the band, all of a
you're
sudden
getting hearing damage because
Yeah.
your brain doesn't want you to. Your brain wants you to turn it off. It's
Yeah.
that. But if you're actually enjoying it, the brain sends that signal to the
like,
receptors
no,
and says,
keep it
"Okay,
going.
I'm going to
Give me
keep this
more."
going, so I'm
Yeah.
going to protect you a bit, but let's
Yeah.
work together on this." It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
I think having like dynamic source material goes a long way as well. Like if there are, you know, kind of peaks and troughs to the signal, and it's not just a brick walled kind of, you know, 2 dB of dynamic range, like completely stonewalled mix. I think that it does help if it's a dynamic recording to begin with.
Hugely,
'Cause
yeah.
Your ears have got little micro breaks in between the peaks, and it's not just like.
Yeah, and that's what again, it's another thing you notice on super low distortion, really good full range speakers is you appreciate the dynamics of music, whereas on lesser speakers you quite often don't hear the dynamics of music.
Yeah, because the drivers are still resonating. At all
Yeah,
sorts of
which is
nasty
why we always
harmonics
say
and
to
stuff.
people that
Yeah.
one of the first things you'll notice when you buy a pair of ours or a pair of yours or a pair
Yeah.
of ATCs, if you're moving up from Adams or something like
Yeah.
that, the first thing you'll notice is that everything you've done so far sounds like crap, unless you're really lucky. And the second thing you'll notice is that where you were having to crank a compressor before to hear the effects,
Yeah.
now you've only got to move it a dB and you'll go, oh, just need to back that off half.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what was really interesting for me with that experience was, and it was actually, I think it was on these actually, my first experience
Yeah.
of a really high-end listening experience, and I put on an album by an artist that I really loved, and I just
And it
didn't
wasn't very good.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what was really interesting after that was I could now hear that.
Yeah.
Even just on headphones, I could hear the difference because it educated my ears
Yeah.
Yeah.
on a whole new level that I hadn't
Yeah.
experienced before.
Yeah, this is one of the weird things about when you're discovering like high end audio and like a high resolution, you know, fairly accurate, capable playback system is that, you know, it's almost like a bit like, you know, the Emperor's New Clothes. You know, you find stuff that, you know, you thought was good. It's just like, oh, hang on a second. You know, I had a few moments like that. First time hearing like big monitor speakers, I'd be like, this is my favorite, you know, Limp Bizkit CD or whatever it was when I was 13. You know, this is going to sound amazing. You know, it sounds all crunchy on my, you know, Alba Ghetto Blaster at home. But yeah, whatever it was. You know,
I'm still getting over Limp Bizkit. Carry on.
Yeah, and then you play it and it's like, oh.
It's like, where's all the bass?
Yeah,
These are big speakers. They've got big bass drivers. They should be, and it's like actually no. And you go through this kind of learning process of finding out just how, you know, critical mixing and mastering, NED tracking, you know, how important all of those phases are. You know,
Often it would sound like it would go into two categories for me. There'd be like
Yeah.
ones with dynamic range, and the other stuff would just sound like it had been recorded in a box.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
essentially it. It was like,
Yeah.
that sounds like, and I don't know if it's like, you know, slapping a compressor on the master bus at the end or something and making everything
Yeah.
sound glued together or
That's
something
it. I
like
think
that.
it
But
depends on the objectives for the mix, doesn't it?
that
really?
was
But
definitely the
yeah.
distinction. It
It
was
gave me-
dynamics versus box.
yeah, it definitely gave me a new level of respect for really good mix and mastering engineers. You know, and just how crucial those roles are.
Yeah, and it makes you sniff out music that you probably wouldn't listen to otherwise as well,
true.
just because it sounds so
Just 'cause
good.
it sounds really good. Yeah,
Like the Carpenters, for example.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, we started hearing that. What was it? Harpsichord or something was in there. Was
Yeah, there's all
something-
sorts
there
of
was
little
like
things that
all
you've
sorts
never
of
noticed.
little
Yeah, you've
things.
never
Yeah.
noticed before. And there's a
Little
bit in
micro
close to you where you
details.
can hear someone apologise for something. It's like someone puts a trumpet down or something, and you hear a tiny little. And then you can't actually. I've never actually been able to hear it and record it and capture it and turn it up, but it just sounds like a sorry. In one, almost like a ghost.
That's actually
Yeah.
Karen speaking just to you.
Yeah, it could well be. Which lips will later be
No.
determined. But the ghost lips.
get the laugh mic out.
But yeah, you can hear stuff like that you yeah, that you can't hear on your
What did you lav?
I definitely said lav.
lav
It was a
mic.
Z.
Yeah.
Not a B. Yeah.
Yeah, that you can't hear on your NS10s.
Yeah.
Oh wow, we are ganging up on you.
You see, I need to apologise for something as well.
Do you?
Yeah.
What do you need
It's
to
another
apologise
bit
for?
of news here, ladies and gentlemen. I did something that I said I wasn't going to do.
What?
Well, yeah, I did see you when I walked in because we'd had another conversation this week about something we were going to do, where you weren't going to shave your head, and you've gone and done it. I'm very disappointed.
Disgusting.
If anyone's got any wigs, I'll get
Honestly,
their
well, I told you what I thought I looked like earlier, which I can't
You do.
repeat.
That's definitely not getting
On a
Get
live stream.
banned from YouTube.
It was ridiculous. And I got up this morning and I looked in the mirror, and aside from having pulled out 2 field mice just from the curly puby side bits, I thought this is ridiculous.
Well, that's
You
progress.
literally look like a...
You're
and
looking
it
in
went.
the mirror. Which
You look
is
like the
a-
Weetos
yeah.
professor. Like,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, slightly worse than that. So yeah, the hair's gone. But the good news is I've got some great stuffing for speaker cabinets. So if you need any now, then I can give you some entirely organic.
I might take you up on that. How quickly can you grow it?
Took a few weeks, didn't it? But
Okay.
I can. If I get ill, it'll speed up.
Really? Why?
It doesn't. Your nails grow quicker. If you have got a cold or something, your nails and your hair grow
Well,
quicker.
you know, just I don't want to go too off topic, but there are certain mushroom supplements you can take to
Are there to
thicken-
boost that
Yeah.
growth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will it stop it going all curly and looking like just a massive pubic mess?
Are you referring to?
No, because yours isn't grey and looking like a pubic mess. Mine literally looks like it's like. what
Anyway,
He's been on the lion's mane.
the- if the mushrooms cure that, I'll give it a
Reishi.
go.
Good stuff, man. Oh, reishi.
That's
Yeah.
you want to get it to
Turkey
get it
tail,
thick,
yeah.
bit of turkey, bit of chaga.
Bit of chaga.
Yeah. So we're
Bugger
now
on.
going to co-opt this and start
Yeah, we're
discussing.
going to just have a completely separate microphile
Okay,
conversation.
that
and,
sounds
yeah.
that sounds good.
so on to some more
Any
news.
mycelium comments or
No,
Well, there's a
funnily enough.
mycelial network in one of the Star Trek series as well. No, we're going completely off topic.
okay?
I think we
all
need
right,
to
back
start our own
James.
podcast for
Yeah,
that.
I think
actually.
so.
Yeah, you do that. There's,
Um,
there's another studio.
James is going to reel us in.
Yes. I just lost at this point.
Otherwise, he's going to eat your brother.
Oh, yeah. We've seen
Yeah.
what
Okay.
happens.
Yes.
Scary, James.
I keep switching to the wrong camera because, as usual, we've re-plugged everything and I'm pushing the wrong buttons from memory. Thank you so much to Richard for the super chat. That is very kind and generous.
Thank you.
He said, huge respect for Jez, charismatic and humble.
Aw,
Would love to
thank
hear
you,
the
Richard.
Kerr speakers. Are there any distributors or other demo options in Austria?
I
Austria.
thought you were going to say Australia.
I was
I
about
thought you were
to.
gonna say Austria. I was like, yes.
I was about to, but I didn't read it.
Not
Austria.
presently, actually. No one in Austria. Yeah, if he were to drop us a line, we could refer him to the nearest distributor, which we've got someone in Germany, so we could potentially have a demo set shipped out for him from there, and you could try him out. Yeah, if you would be interested in
So,
that. Yeah.
what is your website so people can
Oh,
go and have a look?
It is www. Do you have to say that bit anymore? Do people
I
just
don't know.
assume it?
I don't know. Do it anyway.
Kerracoustic.com. That is it.
There we go.
Kerr Acoustic on the socials.
That is
Double
how you-
R.
Double
Double
R,
R.
double R, and no
K-double-R.
S. It's acoustic, singular.
Yeah, not acoustics.
No.
You're only allowed to buy one speaker at a time.
Like,
Yeah.
people call
Acoustic.
us present day productions.
Yes.
don't they?
Mono.
It's
Yes,
like, no, it's not productions.
lots of people say that.
It's production.
You get it as
Production.
well. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just me. Okay, cool.
We should have just put an S on the end of everything.
So might as well carry on with a little bit of news.
Oh, go
So
on.
when I was out being beaten up by reindeers, when I was in Norway,
With no S on the end. That's what we just
Norway.
discussed.
yes, reindeer. I did a bit of googling. So I was in a town in the far north of Norway called Tromsø, and I don't even know how to pronounce it. So
that
a
where the-
Tromsø or Tromsø.
Is that
I'm
where
not
the trolls
sure.
live?
Either way, funny you should say that. There are troll museums there.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
you're getting off topic.
Yes. But yeah, it's a big thing there, trolls. Either
Yeah, I
way.
think they're real.
Yeah, so I did a bit of Googling while I was there to see if there were any studios, because obviously I can't keep out of a studio for more than 24 hours. And it turns out there was. And I didn't do any lengthy Googling other than finding an email address, because I didn't want to ruin any surprises. So I went under the assumption that it might just be a small local single room studio or something like that. And then I turned up and there was this massive like 30 room studio complex in this tiny little town on like the north coast somewhere. And somewhere, I know where it is, I was there. But basically this is what the outside looked like. So it's this giant, I think it was 4-story studio, and it was something like a 30 room complex, and it was called Vibbit Studio. And there's a nice little video. Don't need the audio, but there you go. So
Was that it?
I went for
that the
a
video?
yes.
That's the second longest video we're going to see tonight.
So
It is.
I got taken for a long tour. So a big shout out to Kerr and his colleagues who spent over an hour giving me a tour of this place, just completely out of the blue. Like I just emailed saying, "Can I come in?" And they were like, "Yes." So I got invited in for a tour, and they spent a good hour.
Well, that's
giving
because
me
they
a
heard
tour
what
around.
you did to that reindeer.
Yeah, I thought we better lose Roy our brother.
And so I have a couple of photos from when we were there, and they took me around all the smaller studios as well as into the bigger control room with their big live room and stuff. And funnily enough, this was actually in the middle of a session as well, so they'd stopped a recording session in progress for me to go in and have a nose around.
Did you walk in and say, "Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am?"
This way?
I mean, to be fair, I did have to put in the email, I have a YouTube channel, I don't know if it helps, but please let me in, that kind of thing. But yeah, they took me in for a tour. I had a look around, so that was their main live room. There's Kettle on the left.
You didn't go in brandishing an antler, did you? Just as a
No,
kind of warning.
I didn't.
Yeah. Did you ask anyone if they were doing marvellously well?
I did not ask
didn't?
anyone. No, I did
Damn.
not.
What's
And
your
they
opportunity there?
also had some really nice kit in there. So it's an almost entirely hardware-based studio, and they had some amazing. I don't know why the camera's on you. I don't know what I'm doing.
You pushed the button.
Oh yeah. They had some amazing hardware in there. One of which was an original plate
Oh,
amp.
proper MT plate. Was
A
it a tube one or a solid state? I don't you know.
I don't know. If they're watching,
Mono-
they're in the comments.
Mono or stereo?
I'm sure they'll
That looks
comment.
like
So,
a
so this
stereo
is
to
in
me.
Tromso. Yeah?
Yes. So this
So is this is this in the Arctic Circle? Is it that
is
far
up
north?
way
isn't
above
it?
the Arctic Circle.
Wow.
In fact, I'll get it up on Google Maps in a minute when I've worked out how to do more than one thing at once, and I'll show you on a map. It's right at the northern tip of Norway, right at the top. So bloody freezing, but a really nice experience. And one thing I noticed there is everyone is friendly. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
what it
funny,
is
isn't
about Norway. Like, everyone there is just really nice.
Have you found that, Jez? Because you're
I
quite
have.
big in Norway with
Yeah,
the
spent a bit of
the
time in Norway.
speakers.
Yeah, they're lovely. Yeah, lovely bunch. Always really interested in what you're doing. Lots of
Yeah.
interested questions. We've got a really good distributor in Norway, Multirom, based in Oslo. They've got the speakers in Oslo Hi-Fi Centre, which is quite nice. It's one of the biggest dealers in Northern Europe, actually. Really nice showroom, and everyone's just lovely. I've been there and
Yeah.
done a few events,
Great.
kind of product launches and like just open days for people to come and listen. And yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
It's a good place.
Cool.
I like Norway.
A few people have just asked what the monitors were in their control room. So on the inside, at the top, were NS10s. The ones below that were ATC SCM25s. They're not Neumann's, they were SCM25s.
Better.
And on the outside, the large format ones were
Didn't you marry a pair of
Questeds.
them?
So. No, that was the 45s.
Oh,
I tried to
45s,
marry, but the
yeah.
wedding venue was shut.
Oh, okay.
And marzipan.
Yeah. Which is probably just as well, actually, because we'd probably be divorced by now.
Yeah.
So
That would have got very complicated.
it would. Yeah, lots of legal issues to deal with. The sex life was great, though. I have to say.
Yeah, right.
Thanks to the peaches.
Move over, Karen.
I'm completely lost now. I'm reading too many things at once. But yes, apparently the Norse gods blessed me sacrificing that reindeer. Yes,
Aw.
they blessed me with a nice studio trip. It was very nice.
They did.
So yeah, if there's anything else you guys want to know about speakers, feel free to leave it in the comments. Manny says they need a pair of my mates. They do. I did tell them that we make speakers, and who knows, they might get a pair one day. But they are in Norway, so that's quite a long way to walk a pair up there, isn't it?
Yeah, but you just send them by courier like we do with all the other countries.
Pretty be more fun. We can go on a
Problem
reindeer trip.
solved.
We can go on a reindeer
We
trip.
could go on a reindeer trip. You'd probably eat one halfway there, and then we'd be underpowered for the rest of the journey. But we could already just beat you to death or something. But yeah, we could do that.
Yes.
But I still think DHL is probably the safest option when it comes to getting the speakers to Norway.
Yes.
Anyway,
Maybe the speakers you sell, you could put antlers on the speaker.
Yeah.
You know, some
That's
little
a good
bespoke.
Yeah.
Okay,
That acts as
so
wings.
on to some more
You fly.
speakery discussion-ese. So,
Excuse me.
I think by now people know our opinions on the two options here, but sealed versus ported speakers, or in your case, transmission line. Jez,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
are your thoughts? What's your general kind of vibe on those things?
I mean, there's a place for all of them, which I guess is why all three are still being designed. Yeah, I mean, it's like it doesn't even stop there. You know, you've got ABR enclosures where you have like a auxiliary base radiator, which is, you know, essentially a sealed box but with a passive cone that's just moving kind of in, you know, sympathy with the main driver. You've got isobaric loading as well. So there's lots of different, you know, kind of
There was one
methods out
I
there.
was introduced to. It was by Phil Ward, actually, from Sound and Sound. That I had no idea what it was, and I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, okay.
That was a good story.
Yeah.
Moving swiftly on.
Taylor Swift.
I'm just getting into respectable by Mel and Kim again now. It'll come to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No, it's all good. Yeah. I mean, they all do different things very well. You know, speakers are a very imperfect science, really. You know, they're hideously inefficient, to be honest. You know, and they vary in their voicing more than pretty much any other chain in the, you know, in the signal path, right? So and that's one of the reasons there are so many options and so many ways of doing it, I'd say. But yeah, with a sealed box, I mean, so just to back up a little bit, with a moving coil driver, much like the Volt Radial here, it's moving in and out, so it's generating just as much energy from the back of the cone as it is from the front. And the choice of the designer is what to do with that energy that's coming out from the back, because if you don't do anything and just have it floating in midair, as we all know, you don't hear a lot of bass because the wavelengths just wrap around and cancel. So the energy from the back, obviously 180 degrees out of phase from what's coming out from the front. So yeah, the designer has this decision to make. What am I going to do with that energy? Sealed box or infinite baffle is one way of dealing with the problem, because you're enclosing it, you're not allowing it any path out into the outside world. So sealed box speakers are generally known for being quite tight, quite punchy, quite a focused, controlled bass from them. Downsides are they're inherently more difficult to drive, because again, the driver is having to work much harder against the acoustical impedance, if you like, of having a sealed box behind the cone. But they tend to be fairly linear in their roll off. They don't roll off too aggressively in the bass, which is nice. Ported enclosures or reflex enclosures generally tend to be more efficient and less easier to drive because the cone's got more freedom to move. There isn't like a sealed air mass behind the cone, so it can move a bit more freely. Reflex enclosures tend to be really efficient, but over a narrower band. So the port, depending on the set length and diameter, will have a set tuning frequency, and in and around that tuning frequency, it will work very efficiently as a system. The downside is they can then tend to roll off more aggressively below that tuning frequency. So it could be really, really good down to, say, 45 hertz or thereabouts, depending on the volume of the box. And then you can find in some reflex enclosures that the response just falls off a cliff below that, because you're running into that same phase cancellation issue below that frequency. So so below the kind of operating tuning frequency of that system, i.e. cabinet plus driver plus port, you're getting the same phase cancellation problems, so you tend to, it rolls off a bit quicker.
Interesting question that's just been brought to us by Bobs. Hello, Bobs.
Hey, Bobs.
This is something I've not really thought about too much, but it is a fascinating thing to try and work out the answer to. Does air pressure differences change the behaviour of a sealed, or in some cases ported, speaker? So if you listen to them up a mountain, are they going to sound different to if you listen at a seafront studio down at sea level?
Yeah, so we're talking about altitude here, so like air density.
I mean, air pressure, I suppose, would change with altitude, or I don't know, anything. Air pressure, moisture.
Yeah,
can that all affect speakers?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think there's a speed of sound given for 20 degrees C and then one for 40 degrees C, isn't there? And it's actually like not an inconsiderable difference.
Yeah, it's quite a difference.
Yeah. So altitude, I'm sure would equally make a difference, because we're dealing with the compression and rarefication of air, aren't we? Effectively, that's what it is. If there's no atmosphere, you're not going to hear an awful lot. So it stands to reason that altitude's going to make a difference.
So you haven't built any speakers in space yet?
I haven't. That's got me thinking. That's a really interesting idea, though. I wonder how that's to what extent.
In a YouTube video, we'll go up on a mountain somewhere and take some speakers and see what happens.
Was it Socrates that said if a speaker plays music in space, does it make a sound? Or was that?
Might have been Socrates, might have been Father Christmas.
It was Floprates.
Floprates, that was it.
Floprates.
Floprates. You can't actually see him on any camera, but
No, if
he's
you're
like
if
down
you just
here.
tuned in and wondering why there's an empty chair, it's
Oh.
not empty. It was going to be my chair, but it got taken
There's
over
a
by a
cat.
flop
Oh.
just before we went live.
I've got some-
he's
I've got some
doing
chicken
things.
for him over here. If he
So-
finds his way onto the table, we can give him a little snack.
How sweet.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Manny says, my headphones sound different on an aircraft high up compared to on land, which again,
Yeah.
the air pressure might be affecting the way your ears are
Yeah.
reacting to that
That
audio.
also affects taste as well.
It
Yeah,
does.
that could be
Interestingly.
perhaps due to the change in air pressure and what is it, the Eustachian tube, that tube between like the
Yeah.
inner ear and the brain or whatever might
Yeah.
we all find that our hearing goes a bit weird, don't we?
All
Yeah.
that
Plane,
stuff
so
fascinates me because
yeah.
people's reaction to a sound must be even minutely different for
Yeah.
everyone. It must be slightly different.
yeah,
Yeah.
we
You
all
know.
hear things slightly differently.
Yeah.
We've all got differently shaped ears, haven't we? You know?
Yeah.
And there's that Fletcher-Munson curve, the equal loudness curve, but I'm sure that everyone's curve is slightly different.
Yeah.
We all hear things slightly
Well, we
different.
talk about target curve all the time when we're talking
Yes.
to people installing
Yeah.
monitors and stuff like that. And if you've got a Trinnov, you've got two options really. One is to learn to live with the flat, but generally that doesn't work for anyone.
Sure.
We've all got, and I know I'm particularly sensitive, and you are as well, at about 3.5K.
Yep.
And if we hear something that's ruler flat, that's shouting out at us
Yeah.
going, and
Yeah.
with the Trinnov, if we just dip that out, just a
Yeah.
dB and a half, not a lot, it just takes that.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone's different, and it's important
Yeah.
to when you learn what your own sort of frequency curve is, then you can tailor your monitoring accordingly,
Exactly, yeah.
and then you find that that's when your revisions
Yeah.
Probably
start to
why
drop and
people's
all that kind of
mix,
stuff.
especially people that we revere, people who mix engineers, that kind of thing. Their mixes all sound slightly different, and you can sort of go, "Oh, I know who's mixed that," but by listening
Yeah,
to it, and
yeah,
it might
exactly,
be
yeah, exactly.
how they're actually hearing the music. Maybe they've heard something and they're trying to replicate that, and
Yeah, and it's also incredible how you can negotiate hearing damage as well, because there's a lot of arguments for, well, should I really be sending my music to a 70-year-old mastering engineer that probably can't hear anything above 8K? And the answer is, well, does it sound good when it comes back from him? If
Yeah.
it does, then yes, absolutely you should. There's no law to say that you've got to stop mastering when you're
Yeah.
16 because you can't hear anything above 16K
Yeah.
anymore.
I mean,
yeah, the brain's really good at compensating,
Yeah, it's
isn't
very
it?
good.
It's one of the
Yeah.
reasons it sounds weird if you're A being between two, even if both really good pairs of speakers. Like for the first, you can get very used to a pair of speakers, then when you switch
Yeah.
over, doesn't matter how much you love the speakers you're switching over to. For the first 30 seconds
Yeah.
or whatever, it's going to
It's-
sound
it's
weird,
odd.
isn't it?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a refreshment period, isn't there?
There is,
Definitely.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know she
Yeah.
had a pair of AirPods. Were they
that's
yours
an
or were they
AirPods.
James's?
No, they're mine. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I always find that when I'm going between headphones, for example, I have a pair of the Bayer Dynamic. I think they've got like the Tesla driver in them or something.
right,
And then I
okay.
go and stick
Yeah.
my AirPods in, and it's
Yeah.
like boom, bass,
like,
bass,
yeah.
bass, and I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, but then within a few tracks, I'm sure you're kind of
Yeah.
just adjusted to it. It's
Exactly.
normal again. That's kind of
Yeah.
And that's something in the mixing world in particular that isn't touched on enough. Is that actually you need to allow yourself time to adjust to whether it's the room or whether it's the
Yeah.
speakers, or at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
the person that's sitting there.
And breaks, because our brain gets so used
Oh, yeah, yeah.
to hearing.
Well, I'm sure we've all done that, where you've mixed something till late into the night and then
Yeah,
turned
way
it
too
on the
long.
next morning and gone, oh my god, why is the bass so quiet?
Yeah.
Because I've got used to it
Yeah.
being that level.
Definitely.
Also,
a
the
thing.
brain's ability to pick out different, its ability to separate audio, in even very similar. So it's like that. There was I can't remember what the analogy is. It's something like there's a. I think it was. I heard it on an Andrew Sheps interview once, where he's saying that to a baby, or to a mother, the sound of a baby crying and a squeaking chair or something it's precisely the same frequency, and yet you can instantly pick out which is which.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to. You need to know, is this, or am I bending its back too much, or is it going, or is it the chair?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the chair. I don't need to stop.
Yeah.
Just things like that. So that was
But
really
there's,
crap.
there's
but
a
things-
visual component
things like
as
that.
well, though. There is a
Yeah, yeah.
often, especially when we were doing music videos with the band, and it was the live stuff. When you focus in on a particular instrument, even if that instrument's just completely level in the mix, your brain
Yeah, yeah.
hears
It hears
that more than anything else, which is something that if you can perfect that, you can play with that.
Yeah.
You know, you can actually go, right, well, I don't need to turn that up in the mix because someone's going to be watching that anyway and they're going to see it. So, perfect.
And
So
it's
there's
amazing how
all
much you
these-
have to turn stuff down if you want to. So there's the trick that a lot of metal people use with the guitar where they put an octave piano in with the guitars to cut through in the mid-range. This has been done since the 70s, and then you get the piano low enough in the mix that you can't hear it, as otherwise someone goes, "Why have you put a piano in my rock song? What's Elton John doing?"
this is
Turned up all of a
news to
sudden.
me. I've
You
never
put,
heard
haven't
this.
you?
It's like honky-tonk death
when
metal.
when you get really grungy guitars, you can if they're not cutting through a mix, you can you play a piano part an octave above it.
I'm just imagining Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, but
Wheeling out the old,
honestly, this is the thing.
Da, 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 da,
But then you turn it down enough so as you can't hear it as a piano.
Yeah.
You can only hear it when you mute it, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden the
And it's
guitars.
like, oh, that's weird.
Oh,
Where's
the
that
guitars
gone?
don't sound quite as good, and then you
Yeah.
put it back. It just reinforces the sound of the guitar.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how low you have to get that fader for your brain not to hear it as a piano.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
again with subs when you're saying I like subs. I like subs only noticeable when you turn them off,
Yeah.
and you have to have them really pretty low
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
to have that.
It's a really
that
interesting
kind of
study. I
effect.
wish I could remember more about it, but like you say, certain sounds are very identifiable. But I think there was this experiment where they chopped off the first few milliseconds of different sounds, and suddenly they became much more difficult
Yeah.
to differentiate as what they actually are. It's like you hear something and like, oh, that's clearly a bell ringing, or or that's a piano, or that's a string being plucked. But if you take off, it's to do with the time envelope. I think a lot of
and the
information is in.
transient.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
Because
the
a lot of
impulse,
the 80s synths, like Roland's LA synthesis,
Yeah.
it was because memory was expensive. It was literally milliseconds of a sample just for the transient of the guitar, and
Yeah.
then the decay of it was synthesized.
Yeah, yeah.
But your brain immediately went guitar.
Yeah,
because you heard that
because
first.
you could hear that little impulse. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, it stands to
yeah.
reason if you're chopping off or just burying something so low that that initial impulse isn't detected, that it becomes more kind of hidden in a mix in a way that's beneficial to, for example, guitars or something. Yeah. Oh, cool.
There's a bit of
Try
a
it next time you're tracking guitars.
Wow.
yes. There's a bit of a debate going on in the comments, and I'd love to hear your opinions on this
Okay.
as well.
Oh dear.
About Trinov and general room correction type services. So we've got SonarWorks, Dirac Live, we've got Trinov. There's some more I can't think of. First of all, let's just get your thoughts on that kind of thing. Do you
Yeah.
think things like a Trinov, which I know you've heard here and in various other
Yeah.
places, are a good, useful tool, or do you reckon it's better just to go bare bones with a speaker?
I think, and this opinion's been reinforced the more and more places I've experienced room correction devices like Trinovs and Dirac and things like that, is the less work it's having to do, the more effective it is. And in that scenario, if you've got a good room to start off with, then I think they can be really beneficial. So if you, for example, your room next door, that's the first time I was really genuinely quite blown away by the effect that the Trinov was happening, and really appreciated the benefits that it was adding, because
Right.
the room was good to start off with.
Yeah.
So it was just little corrective things here and there, like the odd couple of dB here, on quite sort of broad slopes. There was no kind of aggressive, you weren't like compensating for like a 20 dB dip,
Yeah.
kind of at 40 hertz or something. In that scenario, I think they can be really, really handy. And I think it's getting better and better all the time. And the same, I kind of would apply the same thinking to pretty much any DSP. So just to link back maybe to like active like DSP crossovers, for example, if you've got drivers that are already well calibrated to the box, and you've got kind of you can afford to put just fairly organic natural slopes in there, then it's going to work really well. But when you're working in the digital domain, any kind of really aggressive boosting or cutting, I do find can be audible.
Yeah.
So if you've got a good room to start off with, and a good pair of monitors, and everything else is really well calibrated, then something like a Trinov I think can be really helpful. So I'm definitely more pro Trinov than perhaps I used to be. So
Right.
yeah.
And so there's a bit of a discussion going on in the comments between what's better between Sound ID or SonarWorks or whatever it's called now, and Trinov and this and that. Of course, this is just our opinions, but everything that we've tried hasn't really come close to the Trinov, has it, in terms of sound or ease of measurement?
Well, Trinov,
Or
and also
there's-
Trinov is doing something that nothing else is, and
Yes.
that's the phase compensation.
Yeah. It does do something quite special, to be honest. So Sam's force feeding
Some
a mic.
people might not often see this, but we often have James in the corner of our eye going, "Get closer to the mic."
I wonder what was going on.
Quite often you'll see me in the background going like, because
First few times I was
Mark's
like,
doing
what-
that.
What's he doing?
So yes,
early for that.
Strange new hobby.
but yes, so
Get the Carpenter's record quick.
Get the pictures.
so yeah, basically room correction stuff. The Trinnov has the best sound out of all of them that we've heard. The measurement process is the easiest by a long way because the Trinnov has got the 4 capsule mic that can measure all of the phase and room reflections and stuff in one pass, whereas with SonarWorks, for example, you might have to put a mic here, then there, then there, then there, and it might take you half an hour.
Yeah.
And reliability as well.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard lots of people say that they've had problems with SonarWorks. Sam's making funny faces towards me.
And
it's-
also the reliability as well.
Reliability
so there's
has
lots
been
of
good.
people who I know who've used SonarWorks and have done the measurement calibration process and then haven't particularly liked it very much, and then gone in the next day and done an identical calibration process on the same speakers in the same room, and it's come out very, very different. So that's oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
It's a bit
So,
inconsistent.
So
Yeah,
this
there's
might
a-
be a really dumb question, but could you take something like the Trinnov into, say, very, very much like your living room or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do
is
a
there- is
hi-fi
there
version
enough?
now. Yeah.
They do indeed. Yeah, so it will correct any room within reason. Obviously, if you have a decent sounding room to start with, as Jez said,
Yeah,
it will
it
push you
helps.
further towards a better result.
It's no replacement for acoustic
It
treatment.
can't
Yeah.
replace sticking rock wall and diffusion and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff in your
Yeah.
walls.
Yeah, if you have huge nulls, you're kind of always going
yeah.
to have huge nulls.
Exactly.
Right? You can't, because the more you boost it, the more it's going to cancel to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you're just running your amplifiers into
Yeah.
ridiculous amounts of
Burning your
power,
cones
and
out.
you can,
Yeah.
So-
you can do some damage if you're not careful.
Start fires.
There is obviously the chat in the comments that the Trinnov is more expensive as well, and that's true. It is a very expensive tool, but you get what you pay for.
Yeah, it's
It's-
not really with the Nova, which is another
it's
bit of
true that-
news, by the way. Nice little segue there. Novas are expected to be landing in the UK this coming week.
How exciting.
And we'll obviously have it on the way because we're going to review one for the channel. But we are also becoming a dealer. So how biased are we now talking about Trinnov? But the reason we're going to become a dealer is because we truly believe in it and think it's the best out there. Nothing else comes close. It's an incredible piece of technology, an incredible amount of research and R&D went into it. And the Nova's chopped quite a substantial amount off the price. And we're going to be doing a bundle deal with our mums.
Yeah. So
That's the
it's
speakers
not
of-
expensive for
It's
what
Good
you
to see
get.
that you've gone
Yeah.
into a legitimate form of dealing now, Mark.
Yes, it makes a change.
The
Yes.
hoodie remains,
It
but
does.
So yes, the Trinnov for what you get is a decent price.
Some very dodgy dealings going on here. Dear.
Thanks.
I'll see you next week. Sorry.
You good?
Yeah.
So for what you get for the Trinnov, it is a decent price. You know, it is more expensive than SonarWorks. That's a fact. It is probably 3, 4, 5 times more expensive. But even I would say just for the measurement thing, the fact that you can put the mic up and providing you've set the mic up correctly and it's in a good position in a decent space, you know, you can work wonders with it in
You
no
get
time.
what you pay for in terms of results, but also in terms of usability. It is like we said in the professional level pricing video, it
Yes.
is a professional piece of kit. We know a person who's been struggling with SonarWorks to tune their Atmos room for 14
Forever.
to 18 months
Yes.
now and still hasn't got it right and still isn't happy with it. Trinnov does it in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's the same every time as
Yeah.
well, unless you move something.
Yeah.
But the result's the same every time, and it takes 3 minutes to calibrate an entire
Sure.
Atmos room to perfection.
So hopefully, the fact that the Trinnov Nova, the new one, is cheaper, starting at 3,995, I think it is, so $4,000. That will open the door to more people to be able to get into owning one of those. Because from memory, I think the MC Pro that we've got started at about 7,000 for whatever the smallest
Yeah.
channel count was.
The
So
ST2,
that was a little
when we
more.
reviewed it, was 4.8.
Yeah.
Then it went up to 5.2.
Yeah,
I
so
think.
we're looking at slightly more affordable pricing here. Still professional level pricing, but yeah.
All
So
I need to do now is replace the screen in that bloody remote.
So Homegrown Beats has been commenting saying that you can do essentially everything that the Trinnov does without a Trinnov if you know what you're doing with a computer and plugins and this and that.
Oh yeah, you can, but you can't do it. You can't do an Atmos room in 3 minutes.
No, exactly. So you are correct when you say that you can do alignment, linearization, you know, EQing and that kind of stuff. But it would probably take you a lot longer per speaker and as a whole room to get to that perfect position.
Yeah.
Or as close to perfect as possible.
And the Trinov comes with a really cool looking microphone.
Yeah.
It's like a trident, isn't it? It's like something King Poseidon would have, you know.
It's very cool.
Yeah, and there's things you can do with the Trinov that you can't easily do with such a DIY system, and that's that I can go to a studio in Tileyard that are running Trinov, and I can load in my target curve and be relatively very comfortable in a room that I'm not used to working in.
Yes.
And it doubles as a weapon.
Yeah. You could try it on some deer, James.
Yes. Ooh.
Don't get me started on that.
Digital antlers, you furry analog beast.
Yeah, right. Any more questions? Anything else to add?
There is some more news.
Oh, what's the news? Is it something that I've forgotten, or is it?
Yes, probably.
Something you've forgotten?
Something.
That'll make a change, wouldn't it? Well, what is it then? Are we going to enlighten me?
It's a fairly minor announcement. But...
Oh, yeah.
What?
Go on then. What is it?
Go on.
What?
No, I'm joking.
What have you
So
Are you pregnant?
actually no. I know what it is,
Again.
but in case I'm wrong, Mark.
What is it?
I don't know what's coming
This is
either.
great,
No.
isn't it? This is
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yes, you know that big thing we've been working on,
Oh,
speakers.
What, the speakers.
Yes. So we have been working on the Mum 6 near field monitor for a couple of months now, and it's
longer than that.
closer than ever. Yeah, a couple of months.
Yeah,
like a year.
We've had several problems. One has been we started off with an external amplifier, which was okay, but then asked everyone if they wanted an external amplifier or a plate amp in the back, and they all said we want a plate amp in the back. And it's been quite difficult to get it in there, hasn't it, without going to some lesser brand of
Yeah.
So
basically,
we tried a few alternative brands. One of them being Ice Power, is it?
Yeah.
And it was just crap. It just sounded awful.
It didn't
I mean, the
compare
name
to the.
is a bit
Yeah.
ice power.
And interestingly, if you buy a fairly expensive pair of speakers that contain 3 letters but aren't ATC,
MUM?
nope,
Yes.
No.
no,
So many 3 letters.
and may also feature a transmission line
Oh.
design. They use Ice Power modules in their fairly expensive.
I'm not going to say I know who you're talking about.
No. Anyway, moving on. So getting the amp in the back was difficult, wasn't it? But
Yes.
now, and also difficult was the price, because we wanted to bring them in under $3,000.
Yep.
Ideally, because we thought that was a good
Yeah,
sort of
good
ceiling
price
price,
point, yeah.
for a small two-way, and that's about what it was costing us to make them. Which
Yes.
kind of when by the time you take the VAT off, when you're like losing £500 on a pair,
Not
it's
really a
like,
sustainable
That's not
business model.
professional level
No.
pricing, is
no,
it?
it's kind of like selling £20 notes for a fiver, isn't it? It's kind of anyone can do that.
Oh,
really.
I was doing that on the
So-
side. That's my hobby.
Is that where all the money went?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
But yeah, so basically
Yeah.
the Mum 6 near field monitor is very close to being ready.
And can I say, I've
very
had a
close.
quick listen to these in their current form. I was absolutely blown away. I think they're fantastic little speakers.
Thank you.
Really, really
Thank you
nice.
very much.
Really
Oh,
good.
quite cute. They've got their little-
They've got their tea cozies on.
Which
Yeah.
is another thing we need to mention. So we're also working with Gavin from Orb Covers.
I've not seen that.
Haven't you?
That looks very cool.
So
What, speaker or the cover?
bring both. Bring both. Oh God.
That's the wrong way round again.
Here's how you do a product reveal.
This is how he keeps getting in
I'm
trouble.
going to say, he did very well getting back into the chair there and not being able to see what's happening.
Thanks.
That's quite impressive.
So basically, we've been working with British brand Arb covers
Forget the mums.
To-
We've got the
The
nuns.
nuns.
to create some high quality speaker covers for our mums. Both the Mum 6 and the
nice.
Mum 8
It's like a little tea
has
cozy.
a line of quilted covers, so you
Yay.
can also sleep in them if you really want
Has
to.
Flop used one as a cat bed yet?
He has indeed.
He has. And he
Yes.
hasn't
So
taken long.
Mark is just fetching a Mum 6,
Uh-huh.
just for those of you that haven't seen it yet. But basically, yes, the Mum 6 uses a very similar line of drivers to what the Mum 8 uses, which is the Bleesma Tweeter and Purify PTT 6.5 woofer.
Cover it up. It's too much.
Put her to bed.
NDA. I'm on 100 NDA. No, I'm not. Flop it like that, wouldn't he?
Right, give me that.
Have a...
So
This is carnage.
there's a baby speaker. That is the Mum 6, which we have briefly shown once or twice in streams before. But
Yeah.
yes, it's basically almost there. There's just some final bits of work to do to the amplification to get it absolutely perfect.
Yeah, a couple of little cabinet tweaks to do. It's fairly heavy.
Really impressive bass end for the size of cabinet. It's the first thing I noticed as well.
It's pretty, yeah, especially for a sealed enclosure as well. I mean, the corner frequency is what? It's about 60 hertz ish.
No, it's 45.
Is it?
Cool.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I just have.
Magic and wizardry.
I'll take that back.
Yeah, so the corner frequency is about 45. I think it's minus 3 dB is about 37. I'd have to check that though. I can't remember.
Nice.
But yeah, so that is the Mum 6, and yes, put its sexy little hat on it. As you can tell, we've really practiced this.
Released because some idiot this week. So the bottleneck with getting speakers out the door has been purified bass drivers, which are...
Your sheath is not covering your mum.
It's got its look.
Aww.
How sweet.
I didn't even realise what I said until after the fact there. It took me longer than everyone else, didn't it?
Yeah,
This is a nice thing. Your speakers are much more portable than mine. I like this.
They're all very good looking though, aren't they?
Oh.
They're actually they're
Yeah.
quite a pleasant sort of sensory experience, and there's this little bit's
It's fascinating.
nice to sort of, you know. Anyway, carry on.
It looks weird in person, but there's just so much clever engineering that's gone into that, isn't there? In
Yeah,
surround.
it still looks, especially the first time you see one, it just looks
It's
damaged.
like, what's happened? Has it been in the fire or something?
Has it got a virus?
Yeah.
What's kind of an STD once that looks a bit like that?
Oh, dear.
It's kind of,
Your mum's no.
I'll probably back over that.
So, Mikhail Mikulski said...
Not quite, no.
Mikhail Mikulski said, Jez, what do you
Yeah.
think of the Mum 8? So I haven't
Oh.
forced him to say anything he's about
No,
to say.
that's
He might say horrible things.
He's a plant.
Well,
He's a plant.
no, they are fantastic. I mean, and I've been quite lucky to hear them at various stages of development, from kind of initial design conception when you were still using the Seas driver, to
Yeah.
when you first got the Bleesmas, and they've just got better and better and better. And yeah, last time I came and had a listen was absolutely blown away. No, they're fantastic. Really, you guys have, and especially in such a short space of time, like the way it's almost like you've travelled into some tangential reality where time moves at kind of a quarter of the pace. 'Cause I can't believe the speed at which you've done it.
That's basically what
Yeah.
happened.
No,
And I read a
absolutely awesome. one of the things I really like about them.
First time you read a book and this
I
happens.
know.
This is what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the versions you've got with the beryllium drivers are really, really special, and it reminded me of my kind of ultimate reference speakers, which are the Yamaha NS1000s, which famously have beryllium 3-inch dome
tweeter.
and a tweeter. And there's something that they do that I've never really heard any other speaker do, in the way that they just spotlight information, particularly in the mids, upper mids, and the kind of seamless transition up to the highs. Until I'd heard the Mum 8s, and I was
Right.
like, they're doing that same
It's
trick,
that
but even
thing.
like more high res, and they've got bass.
Yeah.
So yeah, massive kudos. They're awesome speakers. You should
Cool.
go
Thank
and
you.
hear yourself a pair if you
Well,
can.
likewise, I've fallen in love with those again
Aw.
today.
Cheers.
Is there a Kerr Acoustic present-day production collaboration on the horizon, do you think
I
could be a
think
thing?
I think it would be a crime for there not to be. Really, I think Let's get in the workshop. now,
Committing
shall we?
crimes against audio together.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So yes, there might be some kind of super
Something in the
sexy
works. Yeah.
PDP Kerr Acoustic speaker
Can
coming
you
in the future.
remove this bit here just to be used as a weapon?
I mean, you can as a weapon, or like a throwing star or something.
Yeah.
I mean, the cone and whole magnet assembly would probably disappear into the cabinet, and you wouldn't hear an awful lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd look cool. You can
might
light
need
it up with
You might need
LEDs
an
and
angle
everything.
grinder or
That's all
something.
that matters, really, as long as it looks good.
Yeah.
I just listen to music on my phone speaker, that's
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah,
if
that's
it
what
looks
most
cool,
people do
it's
now,
really
right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had someone ask me recently, what's the point in all these big speakers? TVs go loud enough now, don't they? You're like, well,
Yeah,
if that works for you, crack on. you
That's
know.
why I always carry 2 gas-powered soldering irons with me, just in case I meet someone like that, and I can just go, come a bit closer, come on, just give me a little. Now you can't hear anything, can you?
What is that trend
weren't
all
using
about?
your
You
ears
know,
anyway.
the walking round
Yeah.
with your phone, listening to music. Is that one because you don't want to listen with headphones in, or is it 2 because you think it sounds
I think it's just to be
better?
annoying and just to be
But,
obnoxious.
Yeah, it's likely
Yeah, but a
public
boombox
nuisance.
still had some.
that had some. Yeah, you could enjoy that
body
and
to it.
party.
Yeah.
Whereas a phone is just annoying, but it's just it's the person that's using it again, isn't it? I mean, the amount of people you see getting off the train and walking up the road and they're on their phone like this. I'll be back in a minute. It's all right. You can go like that, and then we can't hear the person yelling down the other end. It's like, I put the fish in. But all right. I can't really hear you. Well, try putting it next to your bloody head then.
It just reminds me of Dom Jolly. Do you remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's
like
kind of like that, isn't
unironically,
it?
they're just doing it.
And again, that's where the soldering irons come in really handy. It's like, no,
Amazing.
you're going to have to text her now.
So yes.
So I haven't got any opposable.
No, I just cut them off.
So there will be a collaboration between Kerr Acoustic. I don't know how we got onto that topic. I've completely forgotten. But yes, there will be a collaboration. It will happen at some point when Jez
Something in
is
the works.
finished doing his speakery things and we've finished doing ours. And also got some questions asking about when the Mum 10 is coming. So this is something we're working on. Basically, at the moment, we've got a massive shipment of woofers on the way from Purify.
I've just sorted 60
A boatload of woofers.
60 bass drivers.
Hang on,
The bank actually phoned me and went, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Don't worry, it's fine."
I'm just a bit worried about the RSPCA phoning in. Woofers, not dogs.
Not dogs. No,
Didn't
We've
actually kill a
got dogs
reindeer.
on order.
So just so we know.
bass drivers.
That'd be a bit of a mix-up, wouldn't it? I'm not sure what
Yeah.
flop
Well,
would
imagine,
make it,
60 Labradors turn up.
That'd be great.
That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? Be like, oh, great.
pair matched as well.
Yeah.
Already uniform.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Flopper probably organised his own private army.
Probably would.
Probably
Yeah.
would. Yeah, look. Oh.
Be like the shepherd of labs. How's he doing? He's been conked out, hasn't he?
Yeah,
He is
probably
He's
fully
well
asleep.
sleepy.
I haven't got a camera that can show you.
We'll get a flop cam before we finish.
I don't want to move anything.
No.
But yeah, so the Mum 10 is a speaker that we're working on. So we've got 10-inch drivers on order. These are a brand new driver from Purify. They're only a couple of weeks away, so we'll be trying that really soon. We're already kind of thinking about the designs for that.
There's also some more news regarding the 6.
Oh, and what is that? I don't know
Well-
why I hit Sam's camera. There you go. That's me.
Lots
there you
of
go.
people have been asking for a sub,
Yes.
and lots of people have been asking us for what sort of stands should they use. So I thought, well, surely it would make sense to have a sub as a stand. Really, that's sort of the same width as the speaker, and kind of comes into a homogeneous.
You know how our
Been reading books
mid
again.
and tweeter
I like how you're
drivers
thinking.
are made by someone called Stanislav?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get him to hold the speakers and just become Stanislav.
Standy slab.
There we go.
Stanislav, we could call him Stanislav's dog,
There we go.
and then feed him some Pavlov. Anyway,
Anyway,
Or
So
you could
I
call
thought-
it the Stanislavski method.
I'm lost now.
I'm gonna. Is your laptop on? I'm gonna airdrop you, which
Just,
obviously never works.
Been
No.
enjoying it for the past hour and a half.
Can I airdrop you a photo?
No, because the Wi-Fi is not on my laptop.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
airdrop me a
It's
photo.
plugged
if you
into the
want.
desk.
Yeah, but you can't.
So the laptop is plugged into the desk, and just coming back to a question, someone said something about the desk. This is a Blackmagic 8M HD8 ISO. Very nice, very sparkly, lots of lights. This is how I switch cameras. There is your quick tour of what that thing is on the on the table. So this is my
Anyway.
vision mixer.
So
So everyone's got their phones out now. So,
I thought, wouldn't it be nice to come up with a? You won't be able to see this. Which camera are we on that one? I should have sent this to James before the stream, but I didn't. I'm just trying to negotiate the cat photos.
Is it saved on Google Drive?
No.
Oh, I knew you'd say no.
Shall I upload it to that? But you can't see that, can you?
Right, you talk for a minute.
Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to have a thingy that's the same width as the 6 and look, makes it look like a nice thing? And then I thought, well, getting sub bass out of a 6.5-inch bass driver is doable, but you're going to need a few of them, and they're purified bass drivers, so
It's going to get expensive.
that's going to
quite
get
quickly.
very
Yeah.
expensive
Yeah.
very quickly, because I think the retail's like 480 quid each
Okay.
or something. So even 2 of those, you're talking a couple of grand a pair. So I thought maybe I should get in touch with someone that's really good at finding some other way to do some sort of base loading, in order that we don't necessarily have to use a sealed enclosure
why are you looking at me?
for
I'm
the,
getting
for
really
the,
worried.
for the sub. That's fine. I'll look at James. So I thought, who do I know that's really good at that and has got some of the most astounding bass out of a cabinet and the driver I've ever heard? I know my mate Jez.
Hey,
So we had a little chat,
we did.
didn't we? And
Yeah.
you designed us a transmission line cabinet.
Yeah. Well,
For
back
the-
of a fag packet sketch. You
No,
know?
it was a very good, precisely measured, very well presented thing.
Just hope it works.
Yeah, so you basically designed us a transmission line cabinet
Sure. Yeah.
for the 6.5
For the Purify.
inch.
Yeah.
bass
Yeah, it'd be
driver.
really interesting to get it up and going. 'Cause
Yes.
it's not dissimilar. So I do a speaker called the K320, which is our kind of best-selling kind of domestic loudspeaker, which is a tall, slim floor standard with a 6.5-inch driver.
Yeah.
And its F3 minus 3 dB point is 24 hertz. So for a 6.5, that's so if we
That's
could
pretty
replicate something
spectacular.
like that using the
Yeah.
Purify.
So
and
that's
have it as
taking
a
the
stand.
F3 of the two-way from, what did you say that was, about 53 hertz
Near enough, yeah. I
down
think so.
to
So
the
you've got
20s.
essentially got an extra octave.
You've got an extra
Yeah.
octave
Yeah.
underneath it.
Nice.
Lots of people have said, oh, you can't mix a sealed enclosure with a transmission line, but you can.
You can. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that opens up the possibility for another exciting thing, which is, what is that noise? Is
What's
it
that
snoring?
noise?
That sounds like a plane.
I think it's a motorbike.
That's a
It's
motorbike.
someone on a scrambler
Blimey, that
having a
must be loud.
fantastic
Anyway.
time.
Anyway, yeah, so that opens the doors for lots of exciting possibilities. And one of those exciting possibilities is that, well, let's get the thingy up on the feed. So this is the so you've got the Mum 6 at the top, and the cabinet that Jez has designed, the TL6, I think we'll call it. We might call it the JK6.
Ah, it's JKTL. No.
Yeah, the JKTL.
That's a
I
bit
like
wordy though. We're
it.
getting into kind of
No, I like it.
like Sony's naming, system where it's like the MKDH.
I don't think it's complicated enough. It needs to be the JKMAJN SR6.
Yeah, let's go for like the Purify.
Can't we just call it the Flopatron 5000?
Call
or
it the
something?
dad.
We could call
Hey.
it, we could
Because
call
you
it
see your
Dad,
mums
but we
on
could,
top
or we
of
could
it.
go for the Purify
Brilliant.
kind of naming thing. In which case, if you look at the data sheets, the model name of the driver is actually longer than everything else on the data sheet.
It's true.
It's ridiculous. It's like, Morton, what exactly the heck does all of this mean? And it does all mean stuff as well. It's just
Yeah.
you've got this spreadsheet. Anyway, so yes, we go back to the little photo there. So on the left, you can see Mum 6 at the top with the Sub 6 underneath, and they're going to be fully active, obviously, with DSP, Hypex amps in the back, but you will be able to remove them, and we will offer a kit that will enable you to rack mount them should you want to, and then there'll be a plate that goes in its place with the relevant connectors on. So that's on the left hand side. The pair in the middle are what can happen if you just add a pair of Sub 6s to your Mum 6s. Then you end up with a nice sort of 2.5 way system, I guess. And then the pair on the right are the so basically you'll be able to order a pair of empty but amplified Sub 6 cabinets, and then you can put the Purify 6.5-inch bass drivers that are in your Mum 6s in the bass cabinets, and then we will do an adapter ring, and you'll be able to add a pair of Bleesma mids to the Mum 6. So then the whole thing will become a complete, fully all singing, all dancing three-way system. So a two-way system that is fully upgradable to a three-way system with the Bleesma mid and the purified bass, and you're completely lost.
That is
Oh no, I
very
think it
modular.
sounds cool. No, that sounds
Excellent.
cool. I wasn't lost.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm suitably insulted.
Well, I apologise for insulting your lack of lossness.
But yeah, so that is
Show them
one.
the chicken, quick.
Well, it's
Yes.
for Floppy,
What?
but he doesn't seem
Oh.
interested.
Floppy
Thought we
is
could do
very
a live
disinterested.
feeding, like at the zoo.
Live feeding.
Yeah,
Pause over the face.
yeah. He's not up for it.
No.
Oh,
Floppy
well.
is very much asleep. But yeah, so that is a very modular monitor,
Yeah,
isn't it?
so thank you for your help. with
swap
the-
all the
Hey,
duties
pleasure.
out.
No worries.
Work on the cabinet, and I can't
Yeah,
wait
no
to
worries
get
at all.
them built. And
Yeah, I'm excited to hear them.
Yeah.
So
It's gonna be something
Reassure said, are the subs only going to be sold in pairs? I'm sure we'll cover all of this in much, much more detail when it actually comes to having these speakers in physical form ready to ship.
But yes,
But yes, we will.
yeah. A
yeah,
single
that
sub
we-
is generally a very bad thing.
Yeah, so we
And they're
will...
not really going to be subs either, because they're likely going to be because even if you don't put the Bleeps mid in, the Purify is optimized for detail in the mid range, and no intermodulation distortion.
Yeah,
and
sub
stuff
does
like
have
that.
the word sub does have
The
this
word
implication
sub,
that it's
yeah,
like
it's
80
not-
hertz and below, 50 hertz
Yeah,
and below.
it'll probably
kind
be
of.
sort of 400 hertz and below,
Yeah.
so it's going
Yeah.
to be a bass cabinet rather than
So
there will be stereo information.
And we're also working on the idea of a sub 8 to go underneath the 8-inch Mum 8 speaker.
Yep.
So that will essentially be the same 8-inch woofer found in the main monitor. And of
The
course,
10.
we're working on making a Mum 10, so there will be a sub 10, or you can mix and match. You can have 10-inch sub with your Mum 8 or whatever you like. So that's the plan with that. There's loads of questions coming in about the speakers, people shouting at me, what's the power consumption? What's the output?
Hang on, slow down.
Hold on. So the power consumption of a Mum 8 is 600 watts per side. So 250 bass, 250 mid, 100 tweeter.
But that's at full.
But that's at
pelt,
full
so
whack.
Don't forget that's the maximum you'll ever
So yeah,
get out of it. So
when they're running at normal human volumes, nowhere near that much. They're pretty efficient. And when they're on standby, they use 0.5
yeah, it's
watts
half a
of
watt,
power.
isn't it?
So almost nothing. Less than a light bulb.
And it's a switch mode power supply as well, so they don't really use the same power that the amps put out into the.
Yeah. Will the sub have DSP? So yes, all of our
Yes.
crossovers, because they're active and they're all going to fall under the same kind of product line, will all have DSP. And yeah, we'll be able to phase align them and sort out that kind of thing. Peter Brandt said, where's my delivery? Which one? Which one is that? Would you like some free speakers? We'll send you them now. Yeah, so lots of fun things are happening right now in speaker world. We are super excited to be.
We are, and there is just
to see
we
what's
should also
coming.
apologise to the small handful of Mum 8 people that are still waiting for their.
Yes, so we're not
Speakers.
developing all this stuff forgetting some people.
No,
we are fully aware of.
The bottleneck at the moment is the Purify bass drivers. We're
Yep.
waiting for the Purify bass drivers. At the moment, they're taking 8 weeks from the time of order, which is considerably less than it was when we placed the first order. But that's why I've ordered 60, just so we're going to have a load in stock and we can get that wait time down, and then it will be something else that we're waiting ages for.
I
like
cannot-
something
Something.
ridiculous like
There's always
PDA
something.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that shipment of woofers. That's going to look ridiculous.
Well, I'm hoping they send it in.
Build a mountain of woofers.
I'm hoping they send it in lumps. So if they've finished 6 next week,
Yes.
we get 6 and then another 6. But yeah, it should be a fairly heavy delivery.
Yes. So Manny has just commented sub 6 ? I think that's basically what was in that picture. It's something akin to that. I wouldn't call it a sub. It's going to be more of a bass extender. But yes, that's basically what that is under the Mum 6. So it's a 6-inch bass cabinet essentially. So yeah, are we done? I think we're done. We've covered about all of speakerage.
I've learnt a few new things.
What have you learnt?
Yeah, read it all back to us.
Wait. What?
Okay. I've got a question.
Yeah.
Can
Okay.
we've got your speakers here for a week, haven't we?
Yeah, you do.
Can I try the Hypex amps on them?
You may. You may.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Can you show me how I might do that after we've finished the live
Oh,
stream?
no, you can figure that bit out.
All right. there'll be 3 wires to each driver, won't they?
3 wires to each driver. That would
3
be
wires-
quite a lot of.
well,
Yeah, that
2
would be quite
2
complicated.
wires to
Yeah.
each driver.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, get stuck in. Have some fun with them. I'll be really interested to see what you come up with. And yeah.
There you go. You got your
Yeah, it's gonna be
DSP
really
work
interesting.
Oh yes, I'm excited to get my hands on that.
this week.
How did you come up with the name Mum? So it's not just a random word. It stands for Modular Upgradable Monitor. So you can swap out the drivers and that kind of thing.
That's another question for you as well, Jess. Can
Yeah.
you please explain your model numbering convention? Because I can't make head or tail of it.
Oh yeah, okay. this is a bit of a complicated one. It started off. So there's 3 numbers, obviously K, Kerr, and then you've got 3 numbers. So 100 originally 1 because there is 1 vertical fold in the transmission line, and there was the K300, which is our sort of stand mount kind of 6.5-inch 2-way model, which has 3 vertical folds. And then there were little variations like the K102. So the K102 is a version of the 100 with 2 bass drivers. So the idea was that the last number would represent perhaps the number of kind of
drivers,
bass drivers in the design. Then you've got the K320, so that's the 2 represents it's like the second kind of iteration of the K300 design kind of thing, but it all got a bit kind of lost along the way.
Right.
Generally, as the numbers get smaller, the speakers get bigger. To a certain
Mm.
extent, but yeah,
Yeah, I didn't realise that was a number of folds. That makes perfect sense.
that was the original thinking behind it.
But then that should have really been the K101 then, shouldn't it?
It should,
But that sounds a bit
exactly.
like
There's all
101.
sorts of flaws that we can poke in the naming convention.
Yeah.
Which is why I quite like what ATC have done, because
Just
they're-
the litres.
That's just the volume of the cabinet. It's
Yeah,
like,
studio control.
makes so much sense.
And again, all the letters.
yeah.
So you got the SEM 200 thingy, ASL, whatever it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, studio control monitor, 200 litres, active,
Yeah.
whatever it is, doo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Didn't you?
No.
Yeah. So if you
fact.
filled that speaker up with water,
Or milk.
or milk,
But I can see where this is going.
it
and
would,
it's-
or compost.
Capri Sun.
You'd get 200 litres in it. Although you could. That's a good question. If you really pack the compost in, could you get a 300 litre bag in that?
I don't know. It's only one way to find out.
Because that would be
Talking
difficult.
about
wouldn't
300 litre bags, I think the hood needs to go back off again. We're talking about
it?
bags.
Do you think? And the trouble is, obviously, if you did fill them up with milk, which would be stupid, it's all going to come out the ports, isn't it?
I mean, they're not
You've
serving.
thought about
How
this
did we get
before.
here?
And
They're
I'm
not
trying
really
to-
serving too much use at the moment. They haven't been turned on since February, so maybe filling them with milk and compost would be the best use for them.
And turn them into planters.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
looking at the
cute.
pot, I'm trying to think of that other name for the type of base loading.
You get isobaric, you get
No.
ported, sealed
No.
transmission line,
No,
horn loaded.
no.
I don't know. Any ideas,
It's
Jez?
some-
You go on
Something's-
about like the push-pull thing where you have like a drivers kind of in opposing kind of not that
No,
thing.
it's something to do. It's based on a ported design. It's something to do with something in the port that slows the air down. So instead of it acting as a tuned sort of a slug of air,
Yeah.
there's actually something in it that slows the air down. So it almost
Okay.
yeah. And there's
Mission
a,
did that with the 770 back whenever the 80s. They put loads of little straws inside the base port because they
yeah,
said
it was something like, and people have done it with foam. And there's
Yeah.
ScanSpeak used to actually make a thing that you put in the back of the cabinet that would do it, and it was called
Right.
the thing. And I can't remember
Something
what the
to-
word. That's
something
going
to go and look up.
That's going to drive me nuts now. And it's a word that's used
If
in
anyone
in,
knows what it is, feel free to
yeah,
drop
it's
it
a
in the
word
comments.
that's used
Yeah.
commonly in other things as well, and I really can't remember what it was. That's going to drive me insane.
Open baffle, someone's
No.
put. It's not open baffle.
No,
Infinite baffle.
no.
That's a sealed box.
PLP bass boost. Yes, that's the one. Yes. Right. Funnily enough, I didn't even realise this, but we've been going for 1 hour 45 minutes.
Really?
Already. Time has
Cool.
blown.
Time flies
Hasn't
when
it
you're having
just?
fun.
Time flies when you're
Yeah.
nerding out on speakers.
Are there any
Yeah.
other questions you'd like me to ask before? Why is it so big? That was a question you wanted me to ask.
So wrong,
Jez,
wrong live
why
stream.
is it so big?
Well, I mean, it's genetics, really.
It's all the milk he drinks.
Yes.
It's so big because I designed this originally. It wasn't designed to be a commercial product originally. It was just something for me to have fun with. It was supposed to be a big, no-nonsense kind of F-off monitor, really, with kind of, no compromise.
Which it is.
Which it is, it's an unapologetically big, beefy speaker, which is why now the K200 is a great product to have, because it's taking the same ingredients and scaling them down into a much more manageable format that's more realistic for people. But yeah, I wanted a TL that could accurately reproduce a 32-foot organ stop, so I wanted that 16 hertz trouser flapping experience, which they do with the Plum.
Keep talking to me like that and trouser flapping and
Indeed. So yeah, it's just a big old speaker. So there's the old adage, of there is no replacement for displacement, and in this case, air displacement. So basically, if you want to go low, you need a big old cabinet. You need a lot of box volume. So they're 160 litres or thereabouts, and it's a third wavelength tuned TL. So it's even lower tuned than a standard kind of more typical quarter wave
So-
TL tuning. So
If you want to see what these speakers look like, I've got Jez's website up on.
Yeah,
The-
we'll put a link
the
to that
lappy
in
top.
the
Oh,
just
cheers.
for the push on, of course.
So hopefully I'll be able to do this on the tiny little screen that I've got down here. So this is the K100, which is the one that we've got right here in the room with us. So that's Jez's biggest speaker. And then the K200. Hopefully, I'm literally looking on a
Hopefully your
1-inch
website
screen.
works.
There you go. So that's the K200. So
Yeah.
a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter.
It's quite a lot smaller. It's less than half the size actually. So and it is actually a stand mount design.
Yeah. And that's got the 10-inch volt radial
It does.
that you showed us earlier.
First commercial product on the market with the new 10-inch volt radial. which
How
is super cool.
exciting!
Yeah.
And then the one below that is the 320.
320. Yeah.
The long boy.
Yeah, exactly.
The long
The
boy.
long boy. Yeah. The tall.
Oh, you're so young.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the small boy.
The small boy. Little boy.
300.
Did you learn this?
Did you go to Norway or Suffolk?
Suffolk.
Flop's woken up.
Oh,
Flop, do you want some chicken?
Chicken.
oh my God, chicken.
Is he allowed
How
chicken on the
excited-
desk?
Look how tired he looks. Oh, he's just woken up.
Can you give him some chicken? Or is he not allowed to eat in here?
Oh no, he's
Yeah.
in there to eat wherever he wants. He is the boss.
Let's see if he wants some chicken.
God's sake.
You see what happens?
Boy.
Oh,
Go on,
Floppy boy.
Someone called the floppy boy.
Oh.
I suppose you spent a week in Norway. Is that how they say boy?
I don't know. I know no Norwegian whatsoever. I tried learning because there are some words similar-ish to German, but nowhere near close enough to guess.
My mouth doesn't make the sounds. I can't shape my mouth in. It's like the artist Aurora, who's
Yes,
Norwegian, who
I've
I'm
heard
really
of her.
into. I can't pronounce it like they do. It's like there's a certain
Yeah.
mouth shape that they
Yes.
do that I just can't.
Something else you witnessed in Norway as well, wasn't it?
The sparkly boys.
The sparkly boy, the sky boy, coloured sky boy.
Oh, is that
Yes,
what
I did indeed see the sparkly boys in the
Yeah, you
sky.
can see that in Suffolk as well, though.
Can you?
Boy?
The boys.
The sparkly
Yes,
boys.
the
No, that's the
northern
glow off
the northern
pregnant 13-year-olds,
lights.
think.
I was very fortunate to see them every single night. It was unbelievable. There is a flop cat,
chicken.
a rising.
See, I didn't want you guys to feel left out. So there's some malams
Oh my
here.
God, we
For-
have
There's
Malams.
a
For you guys,
trail
James.
of chicken leading towards the Malams.
The malams. James
Look
is
at
out.
your floppy
And
little-
for Mark, for you, just because I know what a fan you are, so that you don't feel left out. as well.
Wait, shout out to the camera, Jez.
There you go. This is Mark's own personal tin of spam.
Tin of
There you
spam.
go. You can make some spam frickers when
Are
you
you
get
going to
home.
eat it now?
Thank you, I might well do. Did you know that
Just
also
eat it
that's
like
an
a
anagram
bar.
of maps? So if you get lost, let spam be your guide. What? I don't think that's actually a thing.
Hello.
But thanks, Jez.
You're
that's
welcome.
great. We should
Enjoy.
make spam fritters for next week.
I wanted to get you a
That's what I'm named after.
Is it?
Yeah,
It is.
it's just a silent P.
Just silent.
I
P.
can't go back to
Yeah.
Jez's camera because there's cat bumhole in the way.
Oh no.
Well, then
Oh,
go
no.
back to the camera.
Flop, you're supposed to go that way, you silly boy. How do you say that? How do you say silly boy?
Boy.
There's a cross
Do
between
it again, do it again. I want to try it. Do you want to do it?
Sounds like we get if you cross a pirate with a fuckwit.
I can't even do it now.
Go on.
Go on.
Boy.
Can you do my next promotional video for the speakers? Just be like,
Yeah.
This is
Hey,
the
Buy
yeah,
my
yeah.
speakers,
They
boy.
got drivers in them, boy.
Why you like that? Oh, he's well awake now.
He is now. Look, now the teeth come out.
The Atmos boy.
Oh, you're
Floppy
purring,
boy.
aren't you? Good boy.
That's going to stick now, isn't it?
Right, boy.
Oh, God. Oh, he's purring.
You're a purry boy, chicken boy. Chicken boy.
Chicken boy.
Bring,
That's right.
bring him closer to the mic
up
so
your
we can
chickens.
Oh,
hear.
he once
And
married
you'll
a
be the
chicken.
same.
He once married a chicken. Let's get some purring. We're doing some ASMR, boy.
That's ASMR.
ASMR.
War.
You
War.
Oh, God.
never
If,
know.
if
What's
anyone
going on?
has just tuned in right now, this is going to be the weirdest thing ever.
Chaos.
This is Feeding Flockhead Live.
Sponsored by Spam.
There's actually some really interesting suggestions
I
here.
wouldn't read the
What's it
ingredients
under?
too carefully
Totally
there.
shove it
It's
up
going to be a
your
lot of
arse.
Number 2, squeeze until it pops.
It's good advice for life, really.
Spam
Yeah.
egg with chips.
Oh, spam, egg and chips.
Just add
It's
spam.
a 70s classic,
Oh,
isn't
that's
it?
a winner. Fried egg with a runny yolk.
Refrigerate after opening in a non-metallic container.
Yeah, I did something incredible with a fried egg the other week.
Did you?
I did. Based on
You might want to
This
turn
is
your
a-
mic back so we can hear you.
this is a. Can you not hear plop? No.
What did you do with an egg?
This is a tip from top drummer Stacey Plant. And as you get a crumpet and you toast it, like, hang on, blimey, like you do with crumpets,
Yeah.
and then you crack an egg on it so it all runs down the holes, and you just shove it under the grill for 2 minutes.
Sounds good. But where does the butter come in?
Oh, you put that on before you crack the egg.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
Ow, blimey.
Yes. Someone said with that view of Peter said with that view of flop, it's more like ASMR.
God, he's dribbling everywhere.
He is, I know.
He's
Look at
loving
him.
it.
He's
My
loving
lovely live stream desk covered in cat slobber. Now, no, Flopcat is a boy. Flopcat is not a girl. He is a floppy
a what?
boy. Floppy boy.
You're loving this, aren't you? There you go, Pop.
Ken Allen said, "I know what to bring if I ever swing by PDP. Yeah, just
yes,
chicken.
chicken.
Like, don't bother with anything else. Just chicken. That's all we need to feed
No,
Floppy
you
boy.
can have one more bit and then you'll be fat, won't you?
Floppy. He's so cute.
We don't want you turning into Vanessa.
Are we still live?
Oh, sorry, it was still...
Unfortunately, we are.
that's Vanessa.
that YouTube video you sent me, the obituaries.
It's great, isn't it?
Hilarious.
What was the line? The woman who accidentally confused voluptuousness with lard. It was just a classic line. It's incredible. If anyone hasn't watched Victor Louis Smith's honest obituaries, Victor Louis Smith, who sadly died last year, I think. His honest obituaries are absolutely fantastic because boy are they honest. Anyway,
I think it's time to wrap
I
things.
think it probably is. We're getting a bit
Chicken
delirious.
wrap.
Natural conclusion.
Delirious, don't
Yes.
We reached our natural conclusion.
Right, so if anyone is watching this back and you've just joined and you wonder where all the useful speaker information is, go back.
Go back an hour.
Go back to the start and watch from there. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. You've sent in so many comments. I haven't actually been able to keep up, so much appreciated. Thank you to Jez for
thank you, Jez.
coming
Thank you, guys.
and
Joining us again.
No, it's been a pleasure. It's been a lot
giving
of
us speaker wisdom.
fun. Yeah.
Yes.
That's been
Jez,
fun.
the speaker wizard.
And we will hypex up those big boys.
Apex boy.
Well, you were coming down again, aren't you? in a
Nasty
week,
boy.
so
Yeah.
We'll,
Oh,
we'll
floppy.
have a listen.
so
And
cute.
we'll let the viewers know what our thoughts are.
Indeed. Yeah.
I think they're going to sound very similar, to be honest,
Floppy.
Yeah.
because they,
no
like I
idea.
said,
Yeah.
they sound like
Well, it's
active speakers to me.
yeah.
Because
Thank
you've
you.
got the crossover done so well.
Your crossovers are pretty neutral. They're pretty transparent. You're not your ear isn't distracted by them. Hopefully.
Yeah,
But
there's,
then, yeah, if you guys are doing the filters and putting, then there's obviously going to be your own secret sauce in terms of
In
the
that,
voicing.
yeah.
So there's certain things you
The
may
voicing.
choose. The voicing. The voicing.
the voicing.
Might bring out the voice a little bit more.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but you
voice.
might, there might be certain areas where you feel they could do with a bit of a lift or a bit of a cut. So it'll
Sure.
be interesting to see. And obviously, the domain that you're working in allows you, a little bit more freedom and flexibility in being able to implement those little changes quicker and more efficiently. So,
Yeah.
it'd be very interesting.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
And-
so we
Can't
will
wait.
we'll report back. And next week, to continue on from last week, because last week was, well, our two most successful live streams. The first one was the one we did with you
Hey.
last, and the second one was the watch some idiot with a brush or whatever it was last week. Me gluing up speaker cabinets and stuff like that, which went down really well. So next week we are going to do an amplifier build live. So if you want to see what goes into one of our amplifiers and what comes out again, then tune in next week. I'll be back in the lab coat. I might
Yep.
iron it this time because that was really the only real criticism from last week's.
You're going to go
videos that I
full
hadn't
professor for the amp
I
one, do you
might
think? Yeah.
do, yeah.
Bust out the
Bust out
The wig.
wig. Yeah.
It's not a wig. What are you talking about? It's real.
Oh, I
Yeah,
mean,
I've got
He's the
grow-
professor.
Grow it again.
So,
yeah.
yeah. That's the secret.
Just got to get him some mushrooms, some reishi.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, we
and
need to
that'll,
get him on that. Yeah.
So yeah, next week we'll be doing Mark builds a speaker cabinet. No,
Part
that was
2.
last week. Mark builds an amplifier. Part 1.
We're good at this title thing, aren't we?
Not really.
Yes, so thank you all for
Very
joining.
therapeutic.
I think we should wrap it up there.
Yeah,
I think
sounds
it's
good.
natural conclusion to the live stream. So
Oh,
thank you very
lovely.
much to Jez for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
And showering
Thank you for
us
watching.
in speaker wisdom.
Yes, once more.
And,
So wet.
We are soaked
Get the
in the
mop.
wisdom. Thus.
and yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed it. And you will see, that's the wrong camera. And you will see us,
You'll see us next week building a live amp. Like so, big thank you to Karen Carpenter and anyone
you,
else,
Karen.
anyone at Vanessa Feltz and anyone else we may have offended
Yes.
in the live stream.
And to
We?
find out more...
Me.
You, yeah.
Yes. To find out more about Jazzy speakers, head to Kerr Acoustic, singular.com. And to find out more about our speakers, you can scan the QR code lasagna. And I'll be putting that on screen in just a moment.
Right,
So-
just break just there at
Scan
the
that
final
QR
moment.
code, boy.
Okay, right, we are done. Thank
Right,
you
boy.
very much. What?
All right, boy.
All right, boy. Right, I don't know what's going on anymore. Right,
Boy.
good night. We will see you again soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Where are we looking? Where are we?
Everywhere.
Somewhere.